Hello, and welcome in to episode 7 of the Inspire Breathwork Podcast. We talk a lot in this space about the breath, about what happens when we drop in, when something shifts, when the body finally says what the mind has been avoiding. But there's a moment that I keep coming back to, that moment right after something shifts, after the session ends, after the breath settles, after whatever needed to move has finally moved. And then your phone buzzes. Someone needs dinner. The city is still outside the window doing what it always does. And you think, how do I carry this back with me? How do I take what just happened in here and make it mean something out there? Integration. It's one of the least glamorous and most important questions in this entire practice, in any healing and inner work practice. A word that sounds straightforward until you try to actually do it. I know I've had my struggles with it. I continue to, in fact. And so today, for my sake and for yours, I am sitting with someone who has not only made integration her life's work, she has lived it in the most literal and courageous sense. Her name is Ambar Surastri. She is a sound healing practitioner, a trainee psychosynthesis counselor, a breathwork student and practitioner, and someone who understands in her bones what it means to transform and keep transforming. And Ambar, I am so glad you said yes to this conversation. Welcome in.
Thank you so much. So honored to be here with you. Looking forward to it, and we're finally here.
Yeah, I'm so glad because I remember when I came to you also for the breathwork session we had, I think a couple of months ago, what I came to you with was exactly this, how I am struggling to integrate and embody this practice and my own life practice. And it's so interesting that that's the subject we picked as our core for this conversation, even though I feel like the conversation will go a lot of places.
Let's see where it takes us, right?
Yeah. And so before we dive into anything, I think I just want to check in with you and see how you're doing. How are you arriving into this space right now?
I'm arriving very calm. Thank you for asking. I went for a walk and made sure that my day was smooth. I did all my tasks in the morning so I can be present together with you. So I feel very grounded and settled. Yeah. And what will emerge will probably be passion or something, but I feel good. Thank you.
Oh, that's lovely. I really love
Yeah.
that. Um, Thank you for that honesty, and also thank you for, um, taking the time to allow yourself to really arrive and facilitating your own presence, as Hannah calls it.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, I too, even though it's been a few months that I've been hosting this podcast, every session that I have up for recording, I also really try to keep my day as open as possible on the day I'm recording. In fact, the day before and after are also kind of managed accordingly because I know that we're having in-depth conversations and they're going a lot of places and so much comes up in the following days to it. So thank you for also making that effort.
Yeah. Absolutely no problem, because I feel like with these kind of spaces, integration can also happen after, because things are emergent from our unconscious, within this conversation. So maybe at the end we're like, okay, well, that's interesting. I've got to know a different part of myself that needs a place at one point. So it's also nice for me just to scoop all the things that are not really relevant and free up space to be present. But that's something what I have practiced the last few years. It didn't come naturally.
I think that's even more beautiful to the fact that there was identification, that there's a gap that can be filled, there's growth that can happen, and then
Absolutely.
get right to it. And I think there's something really important about also not launching straight in, about arriving first together. So I am wondering if you would like to take us into an orientation breath before we begin.
Absolutely. So before we're going to focus inwards, either with your eyes closed, soften your gaze, or focus on one point within the space, I would like you to get acquainted in the space that you're in. And we do that by looking around us. This is going to be a very important thing because I am in a space that I've made mine in a short time because I'm in a temporary flat. So it's important for me to do the checkup looking at the corners of the room, the colors of the walls. And maybe there are some areas in the space I didn't really look at. And then maybe there are some items I would like to have moved before I'm going to continue the conversation. Checking if I have my resources in place. I have my water. Do you have something to drink, Suks? Amazing. Maybe there's some textures, a bit of cotton, some materials that used to be living creatures like trees that now formed into wood for my floors, or some other items within the space. And when you're ready, I would like to invite you to soften your eyes or go inwards, soft gaze, choose a focal point. And notice how you're energetically arriving within the body. By softening your eyes, your jaw, and let your tongue relax on the bottom of your mouth. Then soften your shoulders. Raise awareness to your belly. And breathe there to get you out of the mind. And notice how the quality of your breath is without changing anything about it. And notice how your chest is expanding, followed by the belly. And notice if you can anchor yourself on the chair you're sitting. And with each exhale, gonna feel a bit more heavy and grounded in your seat. Maybe you feel some sensations in your arms or your legs. Just observe what's happening there without putting any labels on it. Maybe there's some tingling in there, a little bit of flow, maybe slight pulsations. I would like you to take the deepest inhale through your nose. Exhale through the mouth. Let's do 2 more. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Last one together. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. And notice how you've softened the body, you softened the mind, you softened the breath. And when you're ready, you can slowly let light through the eyes, you can open your eyes. If you would like to stretch, you can do it. Open the heart space. It's nice for our conversation. Welcome back.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I think I was very aware I needed that today.
And then I gave you the stretch a little bit. You're like, oh, that's actually so nice
Yeah,
afterwards.
I love that last
Loved
part.
it.
It was so cute and sweet to listen to also. Just stretch your heart space and allow space in for this conversation.
Yeah, I felt that. I was like, oh, that's really nice to allow that for us and to welcome what's emerging. I said, yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, that was really sweet. And when you said that, in my mind, it was just like this thing of, yes, it literally means what you're saying, but it also nervous system wise does that thing. It's not just a visual representation, it actually is the inner working as well.
It's an embodiment, when the intention, what has been said, and you include the body as well. And I'm also sharing it with you. We're in connection.
Yeah.
That's just a very simple thing of something that's embodied. Really, really love those things when everything fits into each other.
Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're here.
Yes.
Begin. So, Amber, before we go anywhere, firstly, I wanted to check if I am pronouncing your name correct.
Yeah, it's Ambar Surastri.
Amber. There is a little R at the end there, which for my tongue is very hard to catch, but I'm going to try as much as possible through this conversation.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So before we go anywhere, just tell the listeners and kind of me also, because I think I know parts of you, but I don't know so much as well. So I suppose just let's begin with who you are, not quite your qualifications or your healing story, perhaps instead what you do. What do your life and surroundings look like, actually? What fills your days and time?
That's a very difficult question. It's very difficult because I'm in a very different space, just like you, when starting the training is how to identify yourself, how to label. Whereas in traditional ways, I'm labeling myself as a woman that has color coming from the West, who studied something, worked somewhere. Whereas now I'm thinking more in essence, and which is more poetic. And it depends on how I'm arriving today. So right now, Ambar, I am light. I feel a lot of love today. And maybe tomorrow I'll be a different weather. But if you would ask me who is Ambar, Ambar is someone that has a lot of appreciation for connection in the most broad way, how you can be connected, because that's the way people can get back to their soul. And that's something what I'm very, very busy with the work what I'm doing, because the disconnection with soul comes through human conditioning that has come into fruition through the way we live, social construct, capitalism. So I think it's a very difficult question to answer, because it depends on how I feel and my knowledge on what being something is. But I think saying that I am love in looking for connection would be like the best way to describe me. as a person. But if you would like the more like professional, maybe you can ask the question like, professional, what keeps you busy? What keeps you off the street? What are your interests? I can be more specific, but if you ask that kind of question, it's very poetic and broad, I think.
Wow, I loved some parts of the questions you created just now around what keeps you busy as for what keeps you off the street. That's such an interesting way of uh, asking that really age-old and annoying questions of what do you do?
Yeah, because that's one of the first questions, especially I live in London. I'm dialing in from London. That's, I think, one of the first or two questions people ask and to define is what your career is. And I feel that a big part of someone's personality is lost by being defined with what you do for a living. So that's something what I found very interesting to look into. So instead of asking, what do you for a living, is maybe, what is your favorite color? People don't expect that. So I think it's actually quite surprising because it highlights other parts of human beings that they haven't allowed other people to show. But what keeps me off the streets is I'm a holistic therapist, and I got into sound healing for individuals and group work recently as a professional because I changed careers from working in advertising into something different. And I'm adding other modalities to it as well. I'm also certified yoga nidra teacher, and I'm training to become a breathwork facilitator, especially with a lens on decolonized therapies and social embodied justice. And I'm also training to become a psychosynthesis counselor. So with all those modalities, I'll be able to meet people where they are, depending on if they can use certain kind of words to describe something. I just can find things to meet people within their own language. And that's what I find mastering different kinds of therapies being very valuable for someone's self-development, or how can help people grow or create their own lives.
Yeah, thank you. That's a lot that you're doing.
It's a lot, but it does add up to each other, because in the end it's about addressing people as being holistic, that we are physical with emotions, we have our mind, we're very spiritual. It's just looking at human beings from different angles, but it's actually the same thing. I can use different kind of vehicles like the breath, or I can use sound. Maybe I can use words for conversation. So it sounds a lot, but it all connects very well together. And it made a lot of sense to me at one point. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. And to also acknowledge that there are so many parts of us that actually exist and have the capacity and quality to actually be able to come together is beautiful. And I'm curious about a lot of it, actually. One of them I actually don't even know as definition, so I will get to that as well. Sound therapy also is very interesting to me. I'm in one of the locations in India, and I would imagine around the world also, where sound therapy is a huge part of the groundwork, which I'm located in Auroville in India, which is an experimental township where there is an organization called Swaram who do exclusively this work, and they work with sound. They have sound baths. They are researching. I was actually part of a research here with how sound has impact on our emotions and brainwaves. So I had one of those hats on with nodes attached while they took me through a sound session. Yeah, that's really interesting stuff.
Very interesting. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I will gradually get into some of these topics, I think. I would, however, love to begin with breathwork, which is sort of the base of the organization that, that we're connected through right now. So how did breathwork find you, or did you find it? And say, what was your first experience of it? What did you make of it?
My first experience with breath work was a few years ago within a group setting. And the thing is with breath work is you get a lot depending how much you're going to put in of yourself. And I felt at that time that um, I felt safe enough to go into the deep. And it was a very big group. I think it was over 30 people. And I was held amazingly. But it was quite difficult at the end when it comes to integration because you don't get the follow-ups because a portal is going to be opened after a session. And I had quite a hard time integrating. And it was not conscious connected breath. It was quite energetic, but it was with Kundalini. It was quite intense. I don't want to say that I had a bad experience. It had a lot of impact, but the integration was very difficult. So it was nothing like conscious connected breath. And I got into conscious connected breath like a few years later because I was looking at a modality that could enrich my sound healing practice. And I was actually looking into plant medicine and how I could use plant medicine to help people get in touch with the unknown parts of themselves. And then at one point, I dove more into breath work, and I was like, I don't think we need plant medicine because the breath is so profound that you can experience the same things very slowly, but it teaches our body how to be connected with our baseline, something what we have forgotten. And then I did more practice, I read more, and then I was in love with breath work. And I was looking at a mentor I could learn from. So I got into conscious connected breath. I was looking into London where I could find the most perfect fit. And I had no idea that I was looking for a decolonized practice. I didn't know much about it. And after a lot of searching, I ended up at Inspire Breathwork. And I had no idea that something like that exists. And when I read more about how decolonized therapies would look like in social embodied justice, I felt like that's something I need to study and train with like-minded people. So that's how I got into breath work. Not immediate. I had some experiences, not really sure about how I received it, and ended up at a place where I was like, okay, this is a very special way of being connected with our wisdom and things that we have forgotten. So that's actually how I got into conscious connected breath work.
Okay, thank you for that background. I've always wondered actually what Kundalini breath is. I've also heard of Kundalini yoga. I've not had the opportunity to explore either of these practices yet. But yeah, I imagine each of the breathwork practices come with their own sort of intensity and exploration.
Yeah.
But that feeling I resonate with, that I went into it and then I just fell in love with it at some point. So it had to happen.
Yeah, and I felt like, oh, this is something I would like to explore. And with the other breathwork types, I felt like it does something to the nervous system. Yes, you will feel great or energized, which is true, but other things can also emerge. And I felt like, okay, where does that part go? What do I need to do with the emotional releases? What I'm going to do with insights that I've gained, So there's a lot of integration questions around that. And I don't feel a lot of people are informed that people can get different kinds of outcomes from breath work session. So that's why I find the care and the intention that I have not to harm people like a very big thing, what I'm doing with conscious connected breath. It's like super important to me.
Yeah, I hear you. Some of this kind of places for me how you see the decolonial lens being different from some of the other work. But I am still curious because this is still what you define kind of starts to, I think, gnaw at that point. But I'm curious how the decolonial lens has offered you things, or what has it offered you that, say, other trainings or breathwork sessions might not have?
Yeah. So what I find like a very big thing about decolonized work is choice. Choice and agency for the breather, and also the respect that everyone's nervous system is different, but also how you show up during a session is like a very short snap of how you feel that day and how your nervous system looks like. So I feel like there should be like an acknowledgement, and that has not been taken place in a lot of spaces where I've entered. So I find that a very beautiful thing. Is like, okay, we need to acknowledge that nervous systems are different. We have our different background stories. And also, did you have a good sleep today? Did you have some turbulent things happening in your life? Like that's also coming into play for your nervous system. And safety. Safety is something that we need to decide for ourselves. I find it hard when people say this is a safe space. I'm like, I don't think that you can say that, but people also don't know that safety is within the power of the breathers. So sometimes when people say this is a safe space, then you say like, oh, this is safe because if there's a fire, I can always leave, you know. But safety is more than the material conditions within the space. It's the body, nervous system, and the agency that you can decide to breathe differently, or maybe change your rhythm. That's also part of agency. So I think that were, for me, that you can say, oh, those are actually quite simple things, but very fundamental when it comes to spaces of what people call spaces of healing in practice. So those were like the main things that mostly are not addressed during sessions. And that was something like, oh my God, that should be like that should not be a difficult thing to do. But actually, it's very difficult if you understand the complexities of why people don't feel safe. And it's a very, how do you say that? It's a very important topic. I feel like people get uncomfortable too when they touch it, you know, like the safety of other people, creating a little bit of distance. But I feel like if we are less daunted by it, that we can easily create more decolonized spaces of practice and healing. It's beyond breathwork. It could also be yoga. It could be meditation. It could be different kinds of spaces. So that those were actually the first things I was like, oh my God, yeah, I did not realize that those things are very important. What you can take outside of the classes, and oh, I have agency, I have choice, I can decide to do the practice my way. Like I can participate within the group, but I decide today that this breath pattern can be deep, or maybe I feel a little bit fragile. Let's not do that today. So those are the things I've really learned from decolonized practice. And it's just like a part of the scala of things that we can offer as breath workers within this space.
Yeah, thank you for taking me through that. I found a deep resonance with that. And also, interestingly, all the people I have interviewed so far, and I don't know if literally every conversation this came up, but one of the biggest highlights in a lot of the conversations when we spoke about how we found this practice different was exactly this, just the choice and agency, and how big a role it plays, which also goes to show that, yes, like you said, it seems like a very obvious and simple thing, but it really has not shown up in a lot of the spaces we all have entered, is why we've suddenly come here and felt like, oh, wow, this is so interesting. And this is why we're staying. Yeah, I love that. I love that there's a common thread tying all of us, and it is our own safety and our own agency.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a lot to do in healthcare and wellness spaces, for us to do it as a collective. So I hope that these kind of practices are going to be rippled, that it becomes very common and normal for us to check in with each other on that level. Doesn't need to be complicated. Can be when you're setting a frame at the beginning of a class or things like that, like something small, and people will notice and say, oh yeah, I have agency, because that needs time for you to understand that you have choice, right? And then over time, you don't need to say it anymore. You can remind your breathers that they have choice and agency. And even within the session, they still have time to change their mind. And it's something what we haven't learned in our lives, when it comes to giving consent and also taking it back when you don't feel like it. Sometimes you can feel unsafe in a situation after 10 minutes. Do I still have a voice to say to people like, oh, I want to take it back? And within these kind of spaces, there is an opportunity, maybe you feel more safe next time for 10 minutes. Maybe, like it's seeing how we can stretch the window of tolerance within that space. And I think that's a very important thing to practice. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, when you were talking just now about consent and how we can move, how that can change so quickly, I actually was reminded of that session, of that class we had with Hannah. And since I'm just behind you in the course, I actually had this class only, say, 2 months ago, uh, where we talked about consent, and she was helping us figure out how we will facilitate that consent for our breathers once we become facilitators. And it was such an interesting discussion that the cohort ended up having, because we had so many ideas around it, but then also there were these realizations of like, wow, consent can really move within a second, and it's so hard to name it and voice it when you're in the throes of a breath. And we came up with all sorts of ideas, like raising your hand or having like color cards around you. And then we decolonized that practice with, oh, if we're having color cards, then maybe no is not red and it's suddenly just a purple. And it was really interesting. And I love that there was space for us to do that. I love that Hannah's course encompasses such topics that allow us not just a lesson on, oh, this is what consent looks like. It also gave us so much space for discussion on these topics so that all of us could, I suppose, embody the role of the facilitator in a much more collective sort of way. Like you just said, like the collective actually helps so much in
Yes.
helping you learn all the ways you can go about it. My brain has 5 ideas, yours has another 5, and then you end up finding something that you didn't think of, but actually lands much better for you than your own ideas.
Exactly. And also when you're sharing it, it's like, okay, is it still ethical? Is it not? Like just playing around, because we'd never had that opportunity, like one of the biggest things that's very different for us human beings is setting boundaries for ourselves, So if you are getting better with setting boundaries, and it will be easier to work with the consent piece, like in understanding where power lies. Do I have the power? Do I give it over to someone else? Is someone else having power over me? Those are things that we're not, it's not, we don't talk about it like on a day-to-day basis. But when it comes to consent, a lot of people say you give consent once and then you have consent the entire time. But we change, our feelings change, our nervous system change. So because we're so fluid, I feel like the consent wheel and consent should be able to work its way through within fluidity of how we feel like in a session or in life in general.
Yeah. I had something coming up for me just now. Just going to take a moment. Yeah, I feel like, again, this point you touched was so relevant, because there are so many things we say yes to before we get into the thing. And that's where the role of informed consent comes in. How many things have we unknowingly said yes to, from our work contracts to our rent leases, home leases, where there are just these things we're signing because they're just boilerplate. But there is a loss of a lot of consent there, because each word, each line has a meaning that is defined by two different parties, two or more different parties, in fact, not even just two. And then you're saying yes. And then once you get into it, you're like, oh, but this is not something I'm loving. And same with the breath. Like, many times I've got into a session as the breather and I have wanted music because I know I like music. And then once we've started exploring the breath, 10 minutes in, I'm just finding that the music is actually scattering my brain a lot, and it's not letting me land properly. And then I don't want the music anymore. And in that moment, because now you're in the middle of your breath, it's so hard to open your mouth, like your lips don't move. It's the
And then you're gonna bring up the color codes.
yeah.
It's gonna be yellow. Let's do yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit like this, but at one point it's like blue, red. But it comes with practice, right? And I also feel like that people don't want to interrupt the flow they're in, but actually not giving the consent disrupts the flow. So it's about time and get used to it. And also feel like you're not going to sometimes people don't want to say how they feel like because they don't want to irritate the facilitator, but the facilitator is actually there to serve you. So that's also part of education and educating how people can voice themselves within the session, because it's about them. It's breather led, so it's about practicing how they can stand up for themselves within a session, even if it's something as simple as, I don't think I want the music because it's my nervous system is not coming down, I cannot focus. Then there should be space for that. Yeah. So did you manage to have the music off?
Yeah.
Or you managed. Okay.
Yeah. The first time this happened, I managed to voice it, say it. But I know there was a very big internal battle for me. Even though that felt like a lot of minutes, I know it was probably just 15 seconds that my mind was thinking about it. But in the middle of a breath, 15 seconds feels like a lot longer sometimes. And in that time, yes, it wasn't that I didn't want to upset somebody else, but it's also like, it's different for everyone, of course, but some of us just have this nature of like, I'm happy to adjust for this because it's not that big a deal. It's not such a big deal. And I think I did a little bit of that. And yes, then there were also bits of, but because this was also honestly during one of my fishbowl sessions where it happened for the first time, and I was the breather.
Yeah.
And one of my cohort members was the facilitator, and I was like, oh, but she's doing this for the first time. I don't want to make this so hard. But then I also realized that if I am able to say this right now, we might actually, by the end of this session, have a more connected experience. I would end up having a more connected experience, and that kind of is the point of this. But I was able to have all these thoughts because I was 6-7 months into this course, right? I wouldn't have imagined myself to stand up this way in a different situation. And again, not in situations where gender rights are to be fought for, because there I will stand up. I have always stood up. And if there is a person standing in front of me who's just absolutely with an absence of empathy and is saying things that, just don't land well in that political sort of way, 100% I would stand up without a thought. But this was someone I really care for, and I care for their experience, and they are super empathic. And so then that inner dialogue was different.
Yeah. But also for the facility, it is also a case study thing. Like for in the fishbowl, is also another example that breathers can change their mind during a session. So hopefully it was also very insightful and beneficial for the learning process of the facilitator, because it's also part of it, right? It's also part of your journey to say what's important to you to feel connected, but it's also something for the facilitator to tap in. So for both ways, it can be very good, not just for you, you know. But good that it worked out.
Yeah, I did.
Yes.
And then the other times where this has happened now, like with my facilitator who I'm doing some sessions with, we've been able to have a system of just me maybe raising my hand or doing symbols for volume down and stuff like that, because there is a knowingness there. So that changed something.
Yeah. That can be very subtle. So you can still stay in your rest state, because if you're breathing, you're already in a very relaxed state, that you're not using too much of the body, like very tiny, or like maybe something like this, very gentle, could be nice cues you can use. Absolutely.
So yeah, that bit about not getting out of the rest state, I think for me also that part is about having lesser cognitive overload, because there's so much that your brain is processing all the time. And in a lot of the breathwork practice, what I've noticed is that we're trying to get away from the analytical mind and move into the parasympathetic. And yeah, the lack of cognitive overload really helps with that. So I do see the value in like
Yeah.
not using words and instead just a gesture.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Just to clarify for me and for the listeners, you are in the second year of your course, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then this is the part where you are moving into facilitation and
And case studies, that's
yeah.
so we are in our case study phase. I'm doing a lot of research for my thesis, and also looking at how I can improve my sessions, so I have an offering that has been successful or tested by groups of people and individuals by the end of next year. Now the end of this year's cohort, which is in springtime.
Okay, that's lovely. And so, having been through the first year over, say, I imagine you were in 2025 is when your
Yes.
first year was running. Looking back over that year, is there a specific unit or class that you loved a lot, that has stayed with you the most, where something might have maybe shifted for you?
Um, the unit about systems of oppression, that was for me a very big thing. Not necessarily because I felt like that I, as a brown woman, has been oppressed by the system, but also how I contributed as someone within the system, and that whiteness also runs under my skin. That was the most difficult thing. What I've experienced is that the dismantling was also my job. It's not something that I will ask white people, for example, which is most of that when you're a little bit younger, you have like the black versus white, or color versus white, or global majority, what we say now, versus whiteness. But I've learned it's a construct. And that made it very difficult, and it humbled me a lot. So that was a very difficult thing for me to understand how I contributed within capitalism, and also how I, as a woman, uphold patriarchy without even knowing. That was tough. I had a lot of sleepless nights, crying, about not knowing that I also kept those structures alive. So it's a lot of unconsciousness, you know. And at one point I was like, I just didn't know what I didn't know until I've done the work. And that was for me, even beyond that unit, it kept on like the deepening what I had was different. Like there's like a spiral. You're done with it and you go through the same unit again, or another course that has something to do with how we look at empire and colonization. Then you have like a different understanding, goes deeper and deeper. It's like there's so much what I don't know about myself, and the more I know and learn, the less I feel I know less. So that was for me what impacted me the most, is that I have a lot of dismantling to do myself.
This is the part you're referring to where we did the power and privilege structure and
Yeah,
what space we hold in it. Yeah.
exactly. And also another unit which is outside of the cohort was Breathing Beyond Empire.
Yes.
That was tough. And we did it every day with a cohort. Every day breathing, every day contemplating, reflecting, and seeing things I've never seen before. But also, if the veil is lifted, you can also not see life the same way. And also, this happened when the genocide in Gaza was taking place. So it became more prominent in my life, and how I, as a citizen of Europe, living in empire, which is the UK, how we contributed. So that was very. It was more than eye-opening. It was about my identity, who I was as a human being. That I have no idea that I was made numb to participate and to uphold it. That was for me tough. Very, very tough.
Just taking a moment because the minute we speak about it, honestly, it's one of those things that comes alive very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, even in our closest proximities, I think there are so many systems we are participating in that go by every day as just not even an afterthought.
Absolutely. And that's the danger in it, of not knowing, not being aware. And every time I feel like, okay, how do I stand within my social location? What is my proximity to power? Is it a false idea, or does the system want me to victimize myself? There's a lot of questioning in a lot of situations. And I think that was one of the most confronting things within this course. Because when it comes to safety or how we connect with people, those are things that you can practice. And I feel like this is something, when it comes to proximity to power and systems of oppression, is that is indoctrinated within us. I grew up with it. If I look at how I got educated in the Netherlands, I'm from the Netherlands, I'm born and raised in Amsterdam, is that how the course curriculums were made up is for capitalism to succeed in patriarchy. And I did not know that. So it's like, oh my God, as a child, we were indoctrinated, and that's very tough to beat out. It's like it has been building up my entire lifetime. And then I have this course, like, okay, I need to fix this within a year. So it takes also a process of dismantling. I cannot dismantle within one unit or within 6 months. It might take a few years for me to dismantle and find something else in place that can hold me and the newness in how I look at the world. So there's also a lot of patience coming with that.
Yeah, the patience to actually not just deconstruct, but then also reconstruct anew.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I hear you. That's a lot of work. Also, it's a lot of actual work. It's not. I think I want to reword that, because all of this is also actual work. But
Exactly.
I mean, like, very physically speaking as well, and very in your day-to-day speaking, like, so much of that takes a change in your behavior towards the people you're interacting with. It asks for a change in the way you've structured your friend circles and communities so many times, and how you're showing up in them, who you're showing up for also. And so, like, I think that's what I meant by kind of work, that it goes outside of the inner work and moves
Absolutely.
into this like very real visceral experience of doing with your words and hands and actions.
Absolutely. And also be messy whilst being in that process, right? Because we're not getting it perfect. We will not have the right words because a lot of experiences are beyond words. And if you look at different kind of languages and you need to translate it in another language, like English is not my native language. So I also, there's maybe a loss of translation. And I feel like within the integration and the process is that we also need to give each other like the grace of not having it right yet. So I think, yeah, being in the messiness of that is something I find very charming in the work what we're doing. Like, it doesn't need to be perfect.
Yeah. And what has that experience been for you? The one about being a person of the global majority in a cohort. What did your cohort look like otherwise, and how was it for you specifically?
I think we are less of the global majority within the group, but I never felt that I was the minority. I'm using this because we're not a minority, we're the global majority. It's because within my life and personal spaces, I've moved within whiteness and found my success within whiteness, that I didn't saw myself different. That's what I've seen in hindsight. That's what the system does to you, right? It's like you want to become successful as someone from the global majority, so you're going to follow the same rules within the structure of whiteness in going on top of the ladder of capitalism. And then I didn't see that. And when I was in the court, I was like, yeah, I do stand out. And also going back and disidentify from that, it's like, yeah. So we need to be very real that I have a very different experience of proximity to power, even though I ended up at a place where I feel like everyone is equal, but also we need to acknowledge that we're actually not. So we need to name it by what it is. You know, that white supremacy, like nobody likes to talk about that, but it's reality, you know? So getting used about using those words, and also acknowledging that, yeah, in a lot of spaces, yeah, I am the only woman here, and I'm the only woman that's not white. So I'm more confident in voicing that, whereas it was not like that before, because I wanted to blend in. And I feel like sometimes a contrast needs to be acknowledged, because that shows my awareness of the dynamics within power within a space, even if it's a learning space, if it's a space where we're breathing, even if it's in a bus, in an airplane, or whatever you have. I think the acknowledgement of that is something I have trained myself before. It was not even a thing, but I feel that that's an important thing in order to create change, to have debate about things, is to acknowledge what is not different before we go into like we're all the same, you know, like we should stand still with where there's inequality amongst people.
I resonate with that experience so hard, actually, because even right from my admissions interview with Hannah, this was kind of part of that, of how white supremacy plays out for me. And there was a situational question she had asked in the actual interview. And my understanding also at the beginning, before I got into the course, was that I've actually grown up in hubs of international tourism in India, even though I've grown up in a predominantly brown country. It is a brown country, yeah, a brown country. And but I did my childhood in the capital of the country, so it was a lot of exposure to the world. And then everywhere I've lived, they've been hubs of international tourism. So I've seen actually white people more than I've seen brown people in many of those places. At the moment where I live also is a global township, which was founded by a European, a woman from Paris, because she was learning under a guru from India. But then because it was set up by a French woman, actually the population is largely French and European. So I also actually had given her the same answer. I told Hannah that I don't think I've ever felt a real impact of any of it, and I've not seen myself as lesser or more or lesser, sorry, because that was the question. There's no way I'm feeling more than a white person on any day, even by mistake. I mean, you know, in the social structure of things. But that's what I had said as well. And then when we got to the unit around power and privilege structures, and so much of the unfolding even before that, I had started realizing how much I had just not addressed simply because I was part of these systems, and I just felt like I'm not impacted by it, but I had been.
Yeah. And what I experienced of it is that I had this epiphany like, oh, so I am also privileged of the way that we are thinking, both of us, was because of the privilege, and also acknowledging as in, if we have privilege, it means that it goes at cost of other people. That hit me very hard. And I was like, okay, I need to dismantle like ASAP. So that was also very confronting. And my choice not to stay in the discomfort is because I would like to see change. So if I would like things to change around me, it needs to start with myself. And it's like the most painful thing ever. The most painful thing. If you see things in the social body, you need to address it in your own body first. And I was like, that hit me like double hard.
Yeah. Yeah, but it has been one of the most beautiful realizations and acceptances that I've had to accept through a lot of this work, that the part you just addressed, anything, if it exists in the social body, it exists in you.
Yeah.
It's been really, really very interesting for me to hold that truth. Even when I came into the work, there was just this underlying feeling that I hadn't addressed in actual words. But very soon into the course, I did realize that was my truth around how I feel as an entity. And that was that I feel part of a collective, and there is a bigger collective around me, and I feel it, and I want to tend to it. I want to be in service of it. And so then for this truth to have emerged and for me to have the space to accept it, that, oh, this makes sense. If I am a collective, then anything happening to anyone in the collective is happening to me. It's only obvious. Yeah.
And also, I don't know if you feel it deep in your bones, like, I don't want this journey to be any different. I had to experience the pain because that's part of like removing it from under my skin. So even though this journey was very painful and confronting, I didn't want to have it any other way. Like this, at one point, I just chose to do it. It's like, okay, it will hurt a little bit, but this is part of per dismantling. Is we're just going for it, and also understanding that we have a cohort supporting each other, and for Hannah creating a space that we can support each other beyond borders. I find it amazing. Absolutely.
I agree with that. To feel so connected with people living in different continents is quite something.
Yeah. And also what we're dealing with is universal. Even though we're not in Turtle Island or I am not in India, like we're all dealing with the same things. It just looks a little bit different, but we're dealing with the same concerns of oppression and how we contribute. It's it's a global thing.
Yeah. Oof.
I know. I feel it. I feel it in the back, and I feel it like on my arms, like it's tingling. It's like there's a fire also, as in
Yeah.
I'm very hopeful that we can change it. And I see a lot of people that are being interviewed in the media that people don't have hope, and they're trying to fight within the system. And I'm like, we can create a new system. We can create something totally new out of it, you know? So that's something what's very hopeful. And also meeting more people on the journey in trying to dismantle or imagine different kind of worlds is like, it's very hopeful. So I feel like, I mean, we're doing it. So we're doing it. We're having this podcast. We're in this cohort. We're changing our awareness. We are rippling our thoughts to other people. Like it is happening, maybe not in the same speed as what we want, but there is a lot of hope and optimism. And even though a lot of things are ripped under us, you know, like we can build beautiful things underneath it and show that the world can be different by indigenizing, like how does it look like, and go back to the roots where we're coming from, and learn what true connection actually means, being one with nature. So that's very helpful, even though it was a very aggressive way in washing all those things out. I also felt very connected with myself and with you and with other people, with the trees, with the cosmos, you know, like they were always there. I just forgot it a little bit. It's a little bit disconnected.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that in like really sweet words, but you just forgot it a little bit. Because that also kind of goes back to how it's been already passed down through lineage and bodies. And so there's no way you didn't know it. You just have forgotten it a little bit.
Yeah.
Or
and
been made to forget it a little bit, to be honest.
I think made to forget, because I feel like when the body is screaming for attention, you can call it a burnout, or there's like resistance. It's actually the body trying to communicate for your well-being. We don't understand what it's trying to say, right? And I feel like with breath work, we learn different kinds of communications beyond using words. We're using sensation, we're using energetic awareness. Like there are so many ways how we can communicate, and that are different kinds of languages, you know. So I think that has been very, very beneficial for me to understand that there are different ways to communicate. And my body always told me when I had a burnout, this was screaming like, girl, capitalism is not your thing. But I was like, I just don't know. I need to pay my bills. I was working in advertising. I made a lot of money. It's like, this is the only way to go. And the body was like, no. The body was screaming to be like, girl, you need to hug trees. You need to swim in water. You need to find other ways. But I didn't know that. You know, like I had to learn it the hard way. I had to learn the hard way. Yeah. That's what a lot of people within society is experiencing with health issues. It's the body calling for help. We're just not listening to it, you know? So that's like a very big thing what I've learned. And everybody needs to go through their own process. And I try to be there to hold it. If they want to breathe with me, or friends would like to have conversations with me, you know? It's like everybody within their own time, and meeting people where they are, because it's a very difficult topic, I think. Yeah. I find it very difficult to have those conversations with my peers, you know. They find those topics super heavy. Talk about capitalism, oppression, genocide, very, very big words. Whiteness, white supremacy. Oh, can we touch those words? I'm not political, but like we're all political. The food we eat is political, organic food political. Human rights, what we have, like everything's political. It's just people feel
political.
Everything's political. Yeah. So I also try to be very, you know, find the right timing in. So that's also what I've learned with with breath work is the language, the readiness. Also, when I'm facilitating, finding the right words in guiding people, like what kind of words land, it's all language. Also in talking about diseases we live in, why we are all sick, because we're trying to push ourselves into like a pretzel within the system and we just cannot do it. This has everything to do with language. And it's also something I am diving into in the English language, and other languages that are more poetic, and how culture and philosophy goes into the words, So I learn about language politics and how it resonates and how we can use language in spaces of nourishment and healing. So that's also something what I've learned a lot. What I've learned the other day, I don't know if it's relevant, but it's just like emerging, is because I speak Dutch and I speak Indonesian and I speak English. And if you translate certain kind of words, it doesn't resonate. And then someone I know told me that the English language is actually made for accountancy. So it's like very capitalistic. So you see, so there is no room for poetic. If you listen to Arabic or people, if people communicate, like for example Persians, it's very poetic. It's because the language has been used for other things. The culture and the philosophy seeps into the words, and I was like, oh my God, that's so interesting, in how we're going to bring words and poetry within breathwork sessions. I find it fascinating. I find it so fascinating. And then the resonance that goes to the words, I was like, it blows my mind. And that's also how I think about how we are caught into capitalism is also a language. It's a very limited language. If you look at English, that's like one of the main languages to connect people. And I'm like, it would be different if it was Spanish. Can you imagine if it was Spanish or another language? Then there's like a resonance within the words, the resonance in our bodies. So within the system of oppression, I was also thinking about language, and I've learned so much about how people are poetic and how it affects how we receive words, how we manifest things. Like, I'm going totally off piece, but this is also like a very big thing that
not at all
that I have learned from language. It's incredible.
It's
and
not
also like
at all though.
Yeah,
Please go on. Yeah,
I love that, because within our cohort, Hannah is also challenging us to write more poetry, express ourselves, especially with the rise of people using AI and ChatGPT. And it's like language preservation. I think that's a very important thing. Language preservation, and also how we try to preserve our emotions within the written word. So I started to write more and ask less online. Just be like, what does my imagination say if I would like to express something? Like, it can be messy, but at least it's coming from me and not from my friend Chat or my friend Claude. That's
it's an absolute way of resistance at this moment to fight against AI, to do things with your own creativity instead of AI is an act of resistance.
Yeah.
It is the only way we are able to sort of, I suppose, challenge what is being called development. Because the idea of development in my mind is not going deeper into technology while there's no drinking water for half the world. Like, it's a basic survival need. Clean air and water is a survival need. It doesn't even go beyond that. There's no luxury or joy or anything it's evoking. It's just survival to begin with.
Absolutely. I was thinking about it the other day, and I found it actually wild. Everybody's thinking about, we need to do more within 24 hours. Everything needs to be like faster. And I'm like, we're at a point now where people are prioritizing cooling data centers with water, and water is a right of us. Also, it's one of the elements that is very sacred to us, water. And I'm like, and people want to go to space and go to Mars. I'm like, why are we not just going back to basics and just learn how to garden, just walk barefoot, in the season, it's summer. Yeah, just simplify, like there are some ways that technology can be very beneficial for things that we don't like to do. But when it
Like
comes
this.
to create, yeah, or when it comes to expressing human connection, how we connect with ourselves, how we express, how we connect with each other, I'm a purist when it comes to that. It's like I don't, and it's something what we need to practice. And I feel like people also don't trust themselves in doing that, and they're like, okay, I will just ask what I need to feel or ask what I need to do. And I feel there's like a danger because we get more disconnected because we're going to give the power away to a machine. Whereas I'm like, maybe you just could meditate a little bit, like maybe for 20 minutes, and then you have all the answers within you. So there is a very big part. What changed in how I see life is how we can reconnect with our creativity, and how those things are the most difficult things, and the most vulnerable thing is just to be connected with ourselves and with other people. And people be like, oh, I get like the ache. Like, yeah, but that's what we need. Technology can be like amazing, but like human connection, that's the most important thing. That's how we survive as human beings. And without that, there is no species for us to use technology on, or something like it will not be there. So this is what's like going through my mind since I started the course. It's crazy. Yeah, I cannot think different. So dinners with me are very different. All the conversations we're going to have, so these kind of things, we're not talking about what kind of colored tiles you want for your kitchen, those kind of things, or that you would like to organize your books in the colors of the rainbows. No, I think these kind of topics, Suks, those are like meaningful things, because I also would like to understand where people are at, people that are not doing decolonized works, like how are they standing in life right now, how they see the world. So it's also out of curiosity and not necessarily for me to say, this is what I've learned and I want to like project to other people. I also like the curiosity as in where people are at and how they see the world. I find it fascinating.
Yeah. And it doesn't take too many minutes of conversation for that way of tone or come up and for you to give your 2 cents. It's actually quite easy. I do it really
It's
often.
very easy, yeah. And then we can just order another pizza and then we talk about, I don't know, your favorite dish. It can be so many things, but this for a lot of people very daunting. So I also try to normalize talking about these kind of things because it affects us in the world. Yeah, I do love talking about politics,
Yeah,
but I don't.
it gives. It also helps us. From what I've realized from my own experiences and something I employ in my life a lot is it also allows me to assess which of these people have the capacity to actually show up as community. And then those are the friendships I want to invest in and I want to build because, yes, I can hang out with you, but one, it's not nourishing because there's so much like holding back when anything vulnerable is coming up. And then it gives space for political conversations to happen. And I'm quite clear in my mind that I am a political person and I believe the world is political and everything is political. So if I'm sitting with somebody who does not think that, then I'm quite okay to create space between that exchange, because I know it doesn't align with me. I don't have to think they are wrong. I don't have to condemn them for anything. I just get to make that choice for myself, at least, of what I'm allowing into my closed space.
Yeah, absolutely. Like how more authentic you come across, then that's who you are. And you also never know. Sometimes your friends will come back in like 2 years' time. It's like I'm resonating right now. I actually understand what you're talking about, and they will come to you. You know, so it also has something to do with their own space and time. So for me, instead of stopping being political, I dialed it down a little bit, but I will still let people know how I show up. So if they feel a need when they're ready, I also would like to keep the door open, as in I am here for you. Because I have it with a lot of friends that our conversations became quite superficial and surface level, but they still hear me, like when I'm on social media, when I'm conversations, that they still know what kind of topics are are of interest of me, and then they experience their own lives. They go on another path, and they come back like, "Oh, Ambar, I've experienced something, and I think I understand what you're trying to say. Do you have time to listen to my experience?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm very happy to listen to it." So I feel like I don't want to dim it. I will do it. I will just dial it down, because I feel like I'm very open to this conversation where people feel the need to do it. I'd still like to be there for people, you know.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna push it.
I
Absolutely.
have a bunch of things that have been floating in my mind from something
Oh,
you said actually
yes.
6 minutes ago.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing you said about language, that is the
Mm-hmm.
research I was also reading, actually, how differently a child's brain grows up depending on what language it's learning in, because the kind of poetry that moves in language changes the way creativity moves in that mind. And that was really interesting to me. And that brought me to this really very personal experience that I had over the last month. I had joined a summer singing group that this person was hosting in my vicinity. And she was meeting each one of us that she hadn't worked with before, just for a pre-talk. So we met for 30 minutes, and all she said was that there's no real big structure to the thing. We were doing 4 classes a week for a whole month. So it was a lot of commitment. And there was no commitment like, oh, you can't miss a class. But for me, that there is a commitment. When I am saying yes to something, I'm saying yes, accepting that I would like to show up as much as possible in that, hopefully all of it. And I did show up for all of it, but her understanding also was that we're just exploring our voice. We're exploring how different parts of our body feel when we're using our voice. And maybe along the way, you'll find yourself finding tune and rhythm and connecting with different parts. What I didn't know going into it was just the most beautiful things. We were doing this in her house, which she also uses as her studio. And she was doing 2 groups, so there was about 7, 8 of us in one group. And we would meet at the end of the day at around 7 p.m. Right from the first day till the last day that I attended, firstly, we all left energized at 8:30 every night, which you would think is a little crazy for something you're doing 4 times a week at the end of the day. But not one of us had a different experience. Everyone, even if we walked in tired that day, we left with more energy somehow. There was just so much rejuvenation. And she did, like, while all the practices there was a lot of somatic practices in that also, because she also brings in body work as one of her practice modalities. And her practice was so well embodied. It was so beautiful to witness. And we moved through 6 different songs because she just wanted to help us understand how pitch works and how you can flow through a word in a different tune. And they were just basic practices like these, but she was doing it through songs. And the 6 songs we learned were all in 6 different languages. We went from English to Persian to Serbian to Spanish to then one other language that I can't even recall. But it was another Arabic language. And each of those experiences were just so beautiful because we were suddenly all using different words. And then she was also taking us through which line she loves the most because this is what it means. And then we were like, wow, that is so beautiful, because when she was explaining to us what it means in English, there was almost no beauty to that line. But the way we were singing it, because she wanted us to be able to sing it with that feeling, she was explaining the meaning because we didn't know it, but the feeling still got felt more when we said the words in the language it was from. And it was just one of the most interesting experiences for me because while this person has not done any special work with decoloniality, her practice was completely decolonized from the idea of there's no real intention, there's just space to explore, to everyone having their space to explore in whichever state they feel like. There was some times where one of the people passed out during humming also, because it happens. Because while you're humming, and you're lying down because you were feeling through the thing, and you're allowed to lie down, and we're lying on the floor. And one of my friends did pass out during one of the sessions because she was just like tired from her day, but she still showed up because there was energy, like she did want to show up. Yeah, but it was all acceptable. It was such a beautiful decolonized practice. I think I just really wanted to share that. And also that language bit really brought it out for me.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I also like to go to a class like that, like
Yeah.
a session. That's why in a lot of places people use mantras, in Sanskrit, because it's the resonance in there. But there are so many other languages that you have that, like there's so many beautiful languages in the world that we can bring into these kind of places. And for of people to reconnect with their own lineage, then from India, from Sanskrit, or like Nepal, around that area. This beautiful language is beautiful. Did you also dance while you're moving, like singing, or
There was like, it was different every day, but there was parts where we were moving our bodies also while we were singing something, because she wanted bodies to feel free, and because her understanding of these things is that your voice just lands different with every kind of body. We had very interesting practice. We worked in pairs, in trios, alone. It was just really beautiful. I could go on and on. Maybe we'll just talk about this some more.
Yeah, we can take
at
it
another time.
offline and just talk about this. Yeah, I'm very
It was
intrigued.
just so embodied and so beautiful. And now, actually, I offered her some breathwork sessions because it was a sort of exchange for her attending her sessions. And I'm so excited to be starting that with her, because this is a person who already appreciates decoloniality, whether she knows it or not.
Yes.
And what got her excited about it was the idea that it's breather-led. So that already kind of, lands well for why someone is coming into this work. Yeah. And another thing that came up for me while you were talking about the second part of how you keep space open, because people can sometimes feel and resonate with your thoughts, political thoughts, 2 years from that time. I've also noticed there's this one small caveat where I've sometimes met people, and this is someone I actually met. This experience got repeated in life when I recently met someone who is now becoming a friend, but he comes from a very different part of the country than I do, and a very different life experience, a different a different economic class as well. And a different caste. And I know that because there was conversation around how that has played out in his life. And because he's a local from the region I'm living in, his English is very different from mine. His English, it's very conversational, but also it's not his first language. It's not his core language. And so now that we are interacting, there's so much that goes amiss in that conversation. But when I'm getting to know him, I'm realizing that his politics is actually exactly the same as mine. So there's also space for that sometimes the words that person is speaking are not landing well because English is not his first language. So he does not know that it's not landing well, but his action and his behavior is all landing really well. So there's also, like, I suppose, space that we're holding for those experiences, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like because we're more than the words we use. It's like the resonance we give out, the actions, what people notice, how we behave, how we take care of each other. Having care, that's also showing something without using any words or language. That's also what I like about this training, is that we are so much more than words. So if people are not really good in using the words, there's some more other ways you can be connected, or that you can share how aligned you are with someone else. Like there's so many ways.
Yeah. It's really beautiful. And I just, like, you brought up so much for me, like, because everything you were saying, I was like, oh my God, I have a story about that. I have a story about that. I must talk about it. Yeah. Thank you for that. Because both
You're
of these have
welcome.
been really beautiful experiences for me, the singing group and meeting this new friend. And it was really refreshing for me to recollect that with you.
Beautiful stories. Thank you for sharing. Warms my heart, like warms my heart.
Bring the focus a little bit back to you. Also, do you feel like a break or anything? Do you want to use the bathroom?
No, not right now.
Okay.
I will sign very gentle. You go to the toilet. No. Do you need to go to the toilet? Do you need to like stretch? I'm also okay. I have my water here.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can continue.
So what I find so interesting about your particular background is that you came in already holding so much, the sound healing, the psychosynthesis counseling, yeah, and then breath work. Firstly, I'm curious what came first and what came after, just to get a sense of how that journey went for you. Yeah.
Yeah, so sound came first
Okay.
because I was looking for um something to support me. So a few years ago, when I moved from Amsterdam to London, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And when I received that news, I wanted to learn more about how to process stress and how do I need to go to the trajectory going to the hospital. So I got into meditation and a lot of reading about frequencies, about quantum physics. There was the things I got a little bit obsessed about, because I felt like I didn't have control about my health, but where do I have control over? It's like this mental understanding of the situation. And I was very afraid, and practicing to be present was something that was very valuable to me, that I could give myself and I could not ask for my friends and family. It was also within the pandemic, so we were living isolated. We couldn't touch each other. I had to go to the hospital by myself, and my friends and family dropped me off at the entrance, and I had to go through the process by myself. And then I was looking at ways that could comfort me and nourish my nervous system. So listening to sound baths, gong baths became a thing. And I was very interested how vibrations and frequencies could support our bodies. And then the when the isolation got lifted, I got opportunities to go to sound baths. And that's actually how I got in touch with sound baths and sound healing, and how it benefited me within my personal journey. And I was still, I got back to work. I was still walking through the capitalistic system. And I thought maybe it would be interesting for me to start a training next to my work. And then when you start with something like that, so many things open about reality. It's like life and and what's the concept of death, because I got very close to what death could mean. I looked death into the eye. So I was like, okay, how I'm going to make my life more meaningful and purposeful is to finding ways that open my heart. It was sound healing. And then what came first? I think the interest of people and relationships became a very big thing, because those were the things that supported me through the process of having cancer. And I was like, am I going to work in advertising until I'm old? I'm like, no. I think if I work in therapies, I think I'm becoming better, because I'm going to be very embodied with the practice. So then I got into my psychotherapy training, and to be specific, the modality psychosynthesis, because that's a modality where the soul and wholeness of human beings are a very much appreciated thing, where we don't only look at the pathology and our history that make us who we are, but that there's a plethora of different kind of things of us as beings where we can tap into creativity, possibilities, and looking forward, not just backwards, and just integrating all those qualities that we have either suppressed or that we haven't found yet. So I thought it was very interesting. And then breath work came in and out. And then at one point, when I was looking for something that could hold these modalities, what I was already practicing, I was already qualified and got into the training. That's how I got into breath work. And I work with different kinds of people. I work with people that had diagnosis. It doesn't need to be cancer. I live in the city, so a lot of the things are about dealing with anxiety. And I work with a lot of people that are neuroexpensive, like with neuroexpensive minds. That's a different word for people who are neurodivergent, people with ADHD, autism, dyslexia. In one word, their nervous system works different. They're not, they don't fit in the system, but there's nothing wrong with them. So I found it very interesting to work with those people. And breath work is a feel good we use. We all have it. We don't need to have medicine or other kind of things to enhance our feeling, to explore our inner world. I think it's a very beautiful thing. And what I find very beautiful is that breathers get tools. So what I always do when I have one-on-one sessions or group classes is I guide people with the basics of breath work. It's like, we're gonna build your rucksack and we're gonna put like some stuff in, and you gotta master all the things you have in your rucksack. It's like safety, grounding, how you're breathing, setting boundaries, and then we're going on a journey. You're going to the forest on a journey, and then you can decide if you're gonna run or if you're gonna walk, So I use those analogies as in, we're going to make sure that you have a bag you feel comfortable with, and then you go to a journey. I'm gonna guide you, but you have the agency to accelerate or not. And that's what I really love about breathwork, is the control what breathers have of their own journey, because that also contributes to their sense of agency. Because if they feel that they're progressing, it's actually also an acknowledgement that they are reclaiming their power and reclaiming something that has been lost, or something they have forgotten, and something that needs to be remembered. So that's what I really love about breathwork, is giving the tools, and for people just to explore. They can go deep if they want. They can stay on the surface level if they feel comfortable, but I will still be there to hold that space so they can decide how deep they go. So it was the right time. Sometimes I feel like, I should have gone into breathwork a little bit sooner, but I think there's like a timing why I followed this order, and then ended up at not just breathwork, but also this dismantling system of oppression within me, and questioning my proximity to power and those kind of things. So that's my journey, and I decided to leave my advertising background behind. I still can lean into it if I want to. If there are interesting projects, I'll I will say yes if they're interested. But I found purpose in what I'm doing right now, and it calls me. And it's the first time I had purpose and a calling, and it feels right to do that. And I'm trying to navigate that, actually.
I'm so happy to hear that story and that journey.
Yeah, that has been quite a wild ride. It's like, oh my God, you've been to so many places. I'm like, yeah, I've been. I didn't share it a lot with a lot of people because it was so personal. And I feel right now that it's the time, because I feel so safe within myself that I'm open to share it, because I think that will resonate more than saying to people, breath work is good for you because it's good for your nervous system. It's going to the no. I think the human stories and narrative that comes with it is why people would like to work with us or work with me, or feel safe in exploring, because I have experienced those things in my life, right? So I feel like this is the time for me to bring myself more within the practice and not be afraid of it. And I feel more comfortable now in sharing my life story, why breathwork has been very profound for me, and that I would like to give it a go for people who haven't tried it before. It's beautiful. Very life changing.
Oh, there's so much joy inside me, honestly, for that part where you said, I feel so much safety inside me. That made me smile from inside. I'm so happy that you're in that place. And definitely, there is value to human stories. And that's kind of why this podcast even exists, because I do feel like listening to someone's story does something for us that nothing else kind of can. And prescriptive content can't do that. But anecdotes and stories really have that power. And also, a joke played out in my mind around, and what history does Claude come with that we must listen to Claude?
Exactly.
Yeah, there are no personal stories there.
Right?
Might as well
So
listen to these ones. Yeah.
absolutely, the OGs, we have the OGs also, because there is, I think, for these kind of stories to exist is for us to be vulnerable, and for us to allow to be scared and have fear and not to be perfect and be messy.
Mm.
That's the only way for us to connect, right? I think no cloth can help us with that one. Like, this is right, because we're dealing with the same things. It just has a very different container.
Yeah.
We all deal with fear, insecurity,
Yeah.
how it moves in the body. Like, it's for everyone. It's the same. Yeah. How do you feel with sharing in general your personal stories within the work that you do? Do you feel comfortable with that? Are you still, yeah?
Yeah, I think I'm almost an oversharer. And as I grow older, I've had to teach myself what can be shared where. Um, and I've learned to protect my energy over time.
Mm-hmm.
Also, that came from a lot of experiences with men, to be honest, because there was so much energy drained through my formative years in that process of the male gaze, of their presence, of how my body was conditioned to behave in those interactions, relationships, friendships, all of those spaces. Um, and so I think energy protection came for me as a learning I had from my own life and from watching other women around me also. I've been lucky to have some really badass friends who have really, really taught me the way. Um, and with the stories, I think I've had to almost pull back sometimes because I know I'm oversharing and
It's not the right time.
yeah,
Not
now I have
appropriate. Yeah.
learned Yeah, I've kind of now learned to like find that balance of, okay, is this the space for this story? Also, is this the person where it will land well? Um, Also, am I in a space where if I share this and someone responds to it, how open am I to any response?
Mm-hmm.
Any kind of response, because sometimes you know you're around people who are not your people, and so then talking about a vulnerable story can be a loss of agency or safety around someone's response to it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
so
right.
those kinds
I
of
do agree.
yeah, so those kind of discernments I've learned to make now. But yeah, I'm super comfortable with vulnerability. I've also seen it as one of the most powerful things one can um, either be born with or inculcate as a skill,
Yeah.
because it really has allowed a lot of the people in my life to feel at home also.
Mm-hmm.
And although for me it was something that I was born with, and maybe my social environment growing up allowed me to keep doing it and didn't, like, kill that part of me. Um, And so to be able to walk into your friends' lives and be that person and then see them reflect some of it or even appreciate it and then go like, okay, this allows me to open up even though I haven't been that person, is a beautiful experience. And I've had the opportunity to view it so many times with friends that I've absolutely accepted that it is a power and I want to keep it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, good to hear, because it's gonna enrich the purpose what you're following. Like I don't want to call this the work, like life's work. It's not like work, like it's very important that you already feel very comfortable with your authenticity, even though sometimes there should be filters put in place, but that's part of discernment, right? Like discernment is also a thing what we would like to remind our breathers of. So by us practicing it with ourselves, we can meet people as in, oh, let's practice discernment and how to um, few things at the moment. Is it the right thing to do? Not. What feels safe is not. But also what is very skillful for us to show or not. Like if you would like to achieve something, like it's also finding that balance in it, sharing something that could help someone else grow. And sometimes like, oh, we can save it for another time when they're ready. So yes, beautiful thing. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
It's nice to have that space also. Hmm. Um, I've also, this is something I have been thinking about, and it's really great actually that I get to do this with you, because I'm part of the same course, and I keep thinking of like, oh, what would this part of the course be like? And then I get to speak to someone who's 1 year ahead of me, and I'm like, oh, I can ask all my questions now and get all the insight I need.
Yeah. I mean, in the end, it's all about your personal experience, right? So this is that the training is also very experiential, and also for us to trust what we are experiencing, that it can be the truth. It doesn't, we don't need any science or stuff to prove that it's our truth, so I think it's very important. But yeah, ask away.
Yeah, but I am curious as a person and a sucker for stories. So it always helps just to even get creativity flowing to hear from people. Um, so this research thesis that you're working on at the moment as part of your training in the second year, um, I just want to know more about it. What is it about, and what made your attention to that specific subject so imperative?
Yeah. So I have different questions for my thesis. So I'm researching a lot of things at the same time. So I live in London, and what I've noticed is it's very difficult in a city to integrate. And that I would like to see more spaces that are less white wellness. And I don't want to say it needs to be diverse. I want it to be inclusive. So what I've been looking around is and testing with individuals and with groups is why, for example, people of the global majority of people with a certain kind of intersectionality don't feel safe or don't feel a calling to go to breathwork classes, and where that's coming from. So that's like a big thing what I am researching right now. And even though I have a hypothesis and a strategy, I learn new things when I'm with the people, and I'm like, oh my God, that's also like a very important thing where people don't feel safe. So I run a cohort right now with people that are the people with neuro-expensive minds. So what I've mentioned earlier, people that are neurodivergent. And this project, I call it Beyond the Binary, because you have neurotypical and neurodivergent. I'm like, we're the colors of the rainbow. Like, we're not just one of the two. And I felt like if I'm working closely with this group of people, that all the challenges they are running into when it comes to breathwork spaces, it will also apply to the global majority, because the global majority has been excluded from a lot of spaces, not intentionally, but how places are decolonized is just not welcoming. Or at least what I've also noticed is that if I'm asking the question why they are not going to the classes, sometimes people don't even have the language to express why they're not going to those spaces. And then in the end, I figure out it's about safety and about safety and acknowledgement, and it can be something.
Accessibility, I
It is
imagine.
it's accessibility. It's also language. So accessibility comes with language as well, and how breathwork sessions are given. Like with the language they use doesn't always resonate with people.
No, yeah, I meant accessibility in like a larger sense for like if a session is tailored to a neurotypical mind, then it is kind of hard for any other kind of mind to access it in a true sense.
For example, like so what I've learned from the cohort of neuro expensive people is that the breathwork sessions that are made, that are, I don't want to say colonial, but for people with a nervous system that's more neurotypical, it's very difficult for them to go along with it. So I found it very interesting, and it has been very frustrating for them because breathwork was just not a thing for them, because it went too fast, or the whole thing about safety has not been addressed, or how to take care of your nervous system at the beginning of the class and set a framework what it actually means to be safe. Like, that has been not even included, so there was not a sense of care for that. So that's what I'm in my early stages of my case studies. I facilitate groups and one-on-ones, and there's a lot of overlaps if I'm thinking about people that are neuro-expensive and people from the global majorities, that we are intersectional. If we look at the wheel of privilege, it's like, okay, they're intersectional, we're for intersectionality. And then I would like to have a good understanding how I can tune into groups, so it's going to be very beneficial for the entire group, and not, oh yeah, I cannot do this because it doesn't work. But like, if I look at a lot of somatic exercises, some don't land well for people that have autism versus to someone who's neurotypical, because the cues they follow, it's for people with that have autism, they need to have a different kind of feedback. So they need to use their body, and how the body responds is a feedback for them to focus on their breathing. Whereas people that have ADHD or are diagnosed, or maybe they're on the spectrum of ADHD or ADHD, is they need to count. Like, it is actually not difficult, but a lot of facilitators are not even thinking about how they can facilitate breath work, because they only think about what the effect is on the nervous system, but not how it's going to be like guided. So there's so much for me to learn from, and also reminding people of their agency and their power, like throughout the class is a big thing, throughout the whole trajectory, but also for them to feedback on it should be like an ongoing loop, I find, especially if I would like to have classes to be more engaging, is I don't have the authority because I stand here and I guide you. This is like a collaboration what we are doing. So I find it very important for them to, in real time, being able to share their experiences. Oh, that worked for me, that didn't work, or maybe I would like to have more of that and less of that. And being open for that, I think that would be like the next thing in facilitating healing spaces or spaces of nourishment, is there is more dialogue. And then you can make it more fun, because instead of them breathing with you, they can bring themselves in. And I feel that's also a part of making community. It's not just, oh, I'm going to organize events and people are coming. No, it's about how people can contribute with their intersectionality, because I care. I care for people to be heard, because they've been treated different, and they have been oppressed by classes how they're giving. Like, oppression is not only like, oh, the government. Oppression is also, I cannot join this class. It doesn't work for me. That's also oppression, because there will be less opportunity for you to breathe and practice in collective. So system oppression is very big. It's also about accessibility. Like if I would like to give classes, I would like to have people in wheelchairs being welcome, or people that have broken their legs during a ski accident. Like it's accessibility comes in many ways. It's literally accessibility. It's the language that I use. It is how I give people that they can give themselves permission to show up, and how they contribute to my classes. It should be like a fun thing and interesting. So there's so much I'm exploring whilst writing this thesis, but in the end, it's about how the system of oppression has affected healthcare and wellness spaces, and finding an alternative for white wellness. So that's
really wholesome.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you taking me through that.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. The next episode that I will be recording is actually with a practitioner who works in special education and is neurodivergent themselves. And I feel like it's the theme of my week then, and I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because these are topics that actually haven't, by default, they've not been touched upon so far in the six episodes that we've done before this. So it's really interesting for me to explore something more that I care about, because these are definitely things I deeply do care about as well. And then to learn that your thesis also revolves around more expansiveness, which is also what you used, right? The word neuroexpansive is what you said.
Yes.
Yeah.
Neuroexpansive minds. Yeah.
I'm curious if that is the same as neurospicy. Is that another way that is used?
I think neurospicy is what people call themselves when they are neurodivergent, because it's like a maybe more queer wording of it. But neuroexpansive is more, if I'm looking at the best decolonial sense, is neuroexpansive, because it's a spectrum, right? Because if we're looking at neurotypical and neurodiverse, you have two. You're just one or the other, and we're not like that. And I feel also that people are getting a little bit lazy in trying to box people, because that's just convenient. I'm like, no. People come in so many shapes and colors. And I think as facilitators, it's our responsibility for us to hold that. It's not just, the safety, if people are going to, how how do you say that, have like trauma releases or the other things what facilitators can hold. Like there's so much what we can hold. And also because there's a responsibility for the breather to hold themselves within that, So I feel like it's also very important for us to hold people in that difference. But yeah, I like to use the word neuroexpansive. And also because I'm learning a lot about other cultures and how they include people with autism and ADHD. So if I look at the people, Maori people, or the Kree tribe from the First Nation in Turtle Island, um, it's not a bad thing. Like maybe people say, oh, neurodivergence doesn't fit in capitalism because they work different. Yeah, but people have other gifts. They have gifts of connection and things like that. I'm like, oh, I can learn so much about the poetry of what 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 people see in people that have autism, all the gifts they have, what we are not having, and how we can be reminded of that we have those gifts themselves from people who are I don't like the word diagnosed. It's like something is wrong with them. There's nothing wrong. It's they just operate different in life and very different in the system that we as society have built.
Yeah,
So I find it
essentially
very
not even different, right? They just operate how they operate, and you perhaps operate different.
yeah. It's a different operating system. Doesn't mean that it's bad. And also, what I've noticed during my research is that a lot of people around me are either not diagnosed, but they're on the spectrum, and they've masked it. So there's another layer of there's a lot of oppression there as well. Is that they mask themselves, not being authentic just to fit in. It's a very difficult thing, and I help to help people navigate that. That's also something what I've learned about that. So system of oppression goes in many ways, not just the global majority, but also all the how we are different from everyone. It's like how we're going to make it, how we're going to make breastwork in a way that everybody can enjoy it. you know and I understand that the pharmaceutical industry doesn't want to hear this, and I'm like, it's something that we have. It's free, it's sacred, it's beautiful. And especially those people that don't fit this will be very transformative. Yeah, I'm very passionate about it.
Yeah, it does sound like it. I was just going to say that sounds like some really embodied and wonderful work. And I was super engrossed listening to you right now because it felt like stuff I'm so interested in as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so happy that there is someone taking on all of this and feeling so excited about taking it on. I love that so much.
Yeah.
If you've heard of Alok Menon.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So they have this beautiful joke that they do where they talk about, I think straight people should be coming out and not queer people. And I think that's what came to my mind right now when we were talking about how, they're different or they get diagnosed and all of that, how irrelevant it is, because it's like you were born normal according to society is what you should have to profess.
Exactly.
Not that you were born the way you were born, like in a more fun way or exciting way, or however, even if they're not fun or exciting. The point is, literally every person is different from every other person. So what even are we trying to say is a normal?
Exactly. I find them very inspiring. I went to one of their comedy shows, one of the shows in London. I was in a church. I think it was at near Highbury in Islington station, and the love what they have for the world is so inspiring.
It's so infectious, really.
It's so infectious, and like the kindness that's seeping through all the words, and also how they're very political and activism, but it's in a loving way. It's being
in a
shared.
light way also.
Yeah, and it's very
about it.
yeah, and it's very warm. So I think it's a very good modeling in how to be authentic. So I find it, yeah, it's a funny joke. It's like, yeah, if you're coming out, it's more the non-queer, like I'm coming out as cis,
Yeah.
heterosexual,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I'd gone to a show also here in India. They had come to Goa a few years back, and I think this
Yeah.
was one of the jokes that was on stage, so it really stuck with me. But yeah, I love it. It's beautiful. Everything. What I love the most about their work, of course, from the ideology and everything you said, but I love the lightness of it because so much of queerness has been just tragedy and fight and politics, that there really are very few spaces that allow you just celebrating and rejoicing your existence. And that lightness really seeps through for me with their work, which I love about it.
Yeah. And
Be
and
connected
the
with.
lightness makes it, yeah, and the lightness makes sure that it connects with people. It's not difficult. You don't need to be a scholar. You need to be studying political studies or human rights. It's like they bring it in a way that it's accessible for everyone. So they're meeting people where they are with the love and kindness. And there's a lot of education in the jokes as well. The comedy show, yeah, amazing.
Fully agree.
It's a very, yeah.
Yeah. And then to go further in on something you said around how there are so many gifts that, for example, a person with autism is born with that we actually, as neurotypicals, don't have. We, as in me, because so far, I guess I do have the label of neurotypical in my mind for myself.
You mean neurotypical or neurodifficult?
I love that. Yeah, I'll take the difficult. I like it better than typical for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was actually reading a research that a friend shared with me recently, where there are studies that have gone into this, and the neuro surgeon or scientist, I'm not sure, who was studying it, was actually penalized by the medical board and lost her license, was called crazy and not allowed to practice until she had some psychosis tests before they cleared her for practicing again, because she was indulging in a study where she could bring around this information of how so many autistic people actually have this almost what we would call in general language, say, sixth sense, how they're able to, and they did really simple, interesting tests where a person was looking at a number and their child, who they're emotionally close to, their child was able to tell what number they're thinking in their mind without having looked at the number. Thoughts that they could sense before they were spoken. And all of these had emotional connects there also, which is what made it so interesting. That as an autistic person, I'm emotionally connected to this being. And so I'm able to sense and read their thoughts, which to me, honestly, when I was reading it and watching the videos around it, I had goosebumps because I don't disbelieve any of this. I was fully like, this seems like the most obvious understanding of human nature. But that's because I believe in magic in the world, and I believe in the joy and connection that emotional closeness and bonds through lineage and all can bring up. But it's crazy that the medical association literally took away her license for even researching this and putting out results.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. I mean, please send it through. I find it very interesting because, like what I've learned is that people, you have obviously very broad spectrum of autism. Is that what I've learned is there's a lot of connection. That's also why, for example, children that are and adults that are nonverbal, they connect very well with communicating with animals, because that's also like a means of connection with what I don't have access to. So what I see is like we're human beings and we have like capabilities, and maybe within this world, how we need to operate in capitalism, they cannot join that process because there's a requirement for that, but they have a very big database of knowledge or things they can tap into, what we as neurotypicals don't have access to. So for me, it's more like they have access to something where we don't have access to, and I find that something that we can learn from. And oh yeah, they teach me how to be more connected with nature. They teach me how to be more connected with animals, or how we are connected with each other. Like there's so much in there, and I think, was it in Maori or was it in the Cree they are one of the tribes of the First Nation people of Turtle Island, is that people with ADHD are considered as people that, like in the West, we say, oh, their minds are wandering off. But then in different cultures, is they have interest in many things. So it's more about where you put the emphasis on. So because their head goes everywhere because they're interested in so many things. And they're connected to very, very interesting things. So it's about framing in the end, like, oh yeah, if you're interested in a lot of things, means like, yeah, maybe you cannot do certain kind of tasks in your computer job, or, you sit behind the laptop. But being connected with so many things around you and being engaged with your environment is, for me, actually a very beautiful thing. So those are the things that we can learn from people that are not neurotypical. So that's what excites me, is because instead of thinking in limitations, like what can we learn from them? What can I learn about myself that I have been stopping myself from because I want to fit in the neurodifficult category, like it's so limiting, So yeah, doing the research and working closely has been so eye-opening, and I'm also very grateful for them, for that they let me into their lives, that they let me into their experience of not fitting in, and that I would like to give voice to them and how I can improve, and for them to, because I feel like they need the breath work to work with the nervous system. It was just not available to them, So I feel like there's a lot for all as practitioners to dive into. It is a scary thing because we're not accustomed in listening or tapping into people that have different nervous system. Like that's not taught to us. We need to think about productivity. We need to think about performing between 9 to 5. Like we are programmed that for us to be open and show care for people who are wired in a different way, maybe in a more beautiful way than us. Like we just don't have the capacity to do it, So that's, for me, I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna be lazy. I'm gonna try to learn something from it. So I'm enjoying a lot being in the second year of training. It's very difficult, but I enjoy it a lot.
I can really, really tell, very
Yeah.
honestly. Yeah, it's really evident on you. I just want to acknowledge how much I am enjoying this conversation, and how I feel very similar to how I was feeling after my summer singing sessions, that it's been over 2 hours, but I feel very, very activated and energized right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like we've created. Yeah.
Which is usually almost an, after you have sex with somebody for the first time, the next day, and you get no sleep, but the next day you just have all this energy and you don't know where it came from. That's kind of what's happening right now.
I love to hear that I was able to create this container for you, that you feel like this. I think that's incredible. Like I think it's very special for us to create this space where there is like no time. Time doesn't exist, and it's just people that are connected and want to learn more from each other and experiencing like the greatness of life and what other people have to offer. Like I think it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like 9:30 p.m. for me, but look at this energy. It's crazy. Yeah, so I also want to get into like the other part of your thesis, which revolves around the specific texture of city life, which, in my understanding and my belief, is structured to work against integration almost.
Absolutely.
The pace of it, the noise of it, the disconnection from nature, community, the demand for performance, produce, all of that. And what I'm really curious about in this piece is exploring your, I suppose, your your understanding or your feeling around third spaces and how they're vanishing and how systems are taking away those also.
Oh, the third space is very interesting, right?
Yeah.
I've read a lot about third spaces recently. In the third spaces, what I see now coming up are fabricated, I find, because the third spaces look like how I was raised in my culture. In Indonesia, and how people gather together and are connected through food or to festivities or through ceremony, that third space was like a very normal thing. And now you have a lot of third spaces that have been created, and most of the time also financed by brands, because that's like, we're going to create community. And I'm like, creating community and creating events and third space is very different than how we operate in daily life, as in how we are supporting each other in community. It's like, when we are sick, who's going to help us with, I don't know, food, or if someone has like a hard time financially, how we're going to shop at the community. Like, that's a very different thing. I understand why it's needed to have third spaces, especially after what we've experienced in the pandemic globally, that we're very isolated and we're need for those space. But I feel like I think it's a little bit too fabricated, that we forget the essence of it, on how we actually need to create true third community spaces. I was just wondering, like, what your question exactly was about. Was my opinion about third space, or how I see third spaces, or if I have a critical lens on third spaces? Because I have.
No, good on you for catching that, because my question was a little like just exploratory and not so specific. Yeah, I feel like I had opinions on it, and then I was just like, wait, let me hear Ambar's, opinions on it. Yeah, I just feel that the thing I wanted to discuss was how capitalism has taken over those spaces and turned them into paid spaces, whereas third spaces were just supposed to be the path I'm walking to work on, or the park I'm hanging out at in the middle of my colony. And now those have also become paid structures, or like you said, structures that are being funded by organizations, companies, not even organization, companies, to promote their brands, perhaps. So I suppose maybe we could get into what the impact of that is showing up as, since you said you are working with people who are in the bustle of the city. I would imagine just like for them stepping off the mat and straight onto the tube in London, I'm sure there's some dissonance there, and there's a whiplash between those two worlds. And I feel like that's where a third space used to be helpful, you know? So like how have you observed perhaps this experience in your clients and students?
Yeah, so this is a very interesting thing, because I was like, with brands commodifying like the whole third space community, and how I see community in places for healing, and how we can take it beyond the mat. It's like, what are the things that make it difficult for people to integrate? I feel like what was emerging was accountability and taking responsibility. I think those are the two hardest things for people to bring into their integration. Is, you don't do you really have people in the community that can be your accountability friend when you're in the process of integration, right? So I feel that that's lacking within community, because that's actually quite a big and intimate thing for yourself to be accountable, and also to call people out or call people in, within the process of integration. So I feel like taking responsibility for your own process and experience, and taking accountability are very big things, but those things can be achieved if we learn more about reclaiming our power and getting more agency. It will be easier for us to model how does accountability look like within a space of growth within a community, because those are not things that a space that is commodified or where you are earning from money. It's like, if you're in those spaces, like, nobody's talking about responsibility and accountability, and those are actually the best foundations for communities to thrive, because it gives people power. You can engage with each other, you can grow. So I feel like maybe there are more things that are missing with those spaces, but I feel like accountability, responsibility, being okay with making mistakes, not having things right at the same time, if those things were more debatable and experimented model within those spaces, then we can talk about community, I feel like. Or else it's just like a strip thing that we call community, but it's actually not it, because we're kind of tiptoeing around taking responsibility for ourselves, or maybe calling other people in, as in like giving criticism or feedback. Those are the things people are very uncomfortable with. So I feel like those might be the things that are missing within those spaces people call community. But I was just wondering, like, what your thoughts are, because you were also very critical when it comes to, what do you think about those spaces? Like, I feel that there's alignment in between the two of us, but I was wondering what came up for you.
Yeah, I think I'm critical of the way they are being taken over right now, not their existence. Their existence felt, in fact, very inherent and natural. But when you think about it, that existence also, I mean, in my mind, what they were meant to be was that you go to work and then you come home, and there are spaces between that you also get to exist, where you're not playing a role, where you're not that you're not playing a role, because at home there are responsibilities, at work there are responsibilities. But also, while I'm speaking, I'm also recognizing that space exists because a capitalist structure exists, because you go to work and you come home. So, but
It's like you're gonna make that up because we need to soften the capitalistic thing. I think it's good to have this conversation. It's like, what's the third space? Because then the third space within the capitalistic system is a space where people can become more themselves and can lean into community. Whereas that's actually, it should be like a normal thing for us to do. Like, we don't need that. It should be like a default thing, So that's why what I mentioned before is like, there's space within how I was raised in my culture, and also how you were raised in your cultures. Like, it's just part of the family, it's the neighbors, it's when we're going to be together, we eat together. Maybe there's like a season of fruits, so we're going to eat the fruits together, or there's like a ceremony to do, like, like, it's a very different third space than, oh, we need a place where we are not performing, but actually it's also capitalized, like it's like they try to bring a concept in that space, whereas,
while I said it, I realized that third space also just automatically implies that there's a first space and a second space, and then it's again the same thing. It's not a binary, but in a sense, yes, non-binary, because it's not just two, but it is whatever a third three thing combination is called, because there are only supposed to be two places, and now you have a third one. Here you go. But I suppose in its own way, with the fact that this is the reality for majority of the world and population, I suppose then in that sense, this space that we're trying to talk about does have its own value as well. And then to also go ahead and commercialize that feels a bit what is that word? Evil. Yeah. Yeah, I suppose that's all I feel about it.
I was like, what? Is there like a right word? I think, but a lot of thing within the capitalist system is now I'm questioning everything, like everything that's fabricated to get the sense of real community, like within the system, sports entertainment is like a very big thing to bring people together, but it's also not really bringing people together. It brings people together when it grow. I mean, it's very good for the economy, but it's very different than ceremonial spaces that are from indigenous cultures, like this. And now I'm going to question so many things. Also, what you've mentioned about the third space, but is it a third space because your work is your first space, or that's your house is your second space? Like, like it's.
I mean, you went really fast with yes, home is first, work is second. But you're right. You're actually right. People do spend more hours at work than they spend at home. So actually, work is first.
Yeah. Or the way around, and then we try to give it a position within the system. So we're overcomplicating so many things because we wanted to make it fit in the structure. And yeah, it's an interesting. I'm looking forward how those spaces are going to evolve, because I remember 20 years ago, a lot of these third spaces were popping up. It was a running club or a reading book or a book club, or where people are communing together because they have things in common.
Yeah.
Things in common interests. And now I'm just actually curious how that's going to look like, because people are getting more curious in decolonizing things. So like, how would that look like? So that would be like the next thing I'm curious about. Because I feel like if it's decolonized, we don't need brands to do that, like can we uphold, it's like communal first aid, like it's about responsibility and accountability. We don't have a brand or a leader like leading the initiative. We need to do it as a collective. Like that's a scary, but that's what all the responsibility and accountability comes in, is that who is going to carry it, like it's going to be all the individuals. It's not going to be one leading and then people just show up. Third space. No. It's like, like there's so many, so many things that.
I'm also realizing while we were talking that technically if workspaces were decolonized, then there would be no need for a specific third space to do that function. But because they're like, okay, here you stick on these rules and live under us, so go have a space that allows you to just be
yourself, yes.
Which is a little messed up, quite messed up.
It is messed up. I find it so interesting to, I was like, oh my God, maybe I could like have my thesis about that, like.
No,
like, no, I need to keep on focusing. No, that's another thing. But I find it very interesting because how you asked me is also, we're trying to make it make sense within the construct that's existing, right? But and then it's like, oh yeah, but actually,
Yeah, you fully caught on to that. There was actually no question there. It was just like an annoyance.
Yeah, it's actually quite right. It doesn't make sense to have that. Yeah.
I just wanted to like bring it up and share the annoyance and discuss the topic, but there was no real question. So yeah, that was
the annoyance is shared. So we're connect on that one. Like the annoyance is shared, and
yeah,
it's very interesting because a lot of people are attracted. Like it's a very successful concept because we have an underlying need for that. We just didn't find the words to be connected with other people. So it's like, oh, you like baking or you like running or cycling, then we're gonna call it XYZ and create a space for it. Because there is a need of us, and it's also people remembering that there is a need for us to be connected. We just didn't find the right word. We think, oh, maybe I need to go to a cycling club and a third space where I can come there, get my cup of coffee, and then I'm going to hang out with others and I'm going to talk about my bike. but because there's a need for connection, people just don't know that that's how remembrance works. Interesting. I can talk about this for hours.
Yeah. I also just found it a little relevant because we were talking about city life and burnout involved there. And then this is a huge part of city life at the moment. It is the only structure where at the moment people do get to stop performing. So yeah, maybe there's some reflection on it later, and it can just be something that we talked about, that we both just land up with thoughts on and don't know where we're going with it.
I am actually questioning now, like, of those spaces that you've mentioned. It's like you say it's a place where people are not performing, but I'm like, it's actually still very performative space.
In a sense, I suppose in a capitalist structure, it is hard for performance to not exist, because if we're creating a space for come in and don't perform, you're performing the not performing, in a sense, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Because if you're naming it that, then that work is done before you enter it. But at large, I also feel like the core idea of a third space isn't so much of having a common interest. It's more, in fact, welcoming people from different cultural backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds. The primary draw is still interacting with others and building relationships. But the idea is that it's within walking distance, it's promoting ease of use, it's a space you can enter without invitation, not spend money on, that sort of structure. So that is where the not performing any roles was coming from. Yeah.
Yeah. And I still feel like there's so much to explore. Like I think people are also figuring out, and then maybe they wake up and it's still very experimental place. I do see more spaces, especially where I am living in East London, Northeast London, is there are a lot of those spaces that are not funded by brands. So I find it actually quite interesting to see how that goes. We have community gardens where people are volunteering, and everybody takes responsibility and accountability how to take care of the garden. Obviously, there is someone who is leading, but it's like a joint thing. So there are spaces like, third spaces, but it's very interesting to see that there are commercialized spaces and not commercialized spaces. And I feel like the not commercialized spaces, there's a lot of place for experimenting. People are probably reinventing the wheel, because in a lot of communities in other continents, people are dependent on those places. If you don't have a babysitter, then you have like your children can hang out there before you're done with work. Like those are the places where you call the other people your aunties, but they're not your real aunties, and they take care of the children. Those are the spaces where you can just play around in between school and being home. It's a very interesting to see that people are trying to find the ways in creating those spaces, whereas in other cultures, it's more common to have those spaces.
Yeah.
And I feel like people should experiment. Yeah. Even if it's reinventing the wheel, people need to find ways what's suitable to them and what's suitable in the location and the city where people live in. And it's a very human thing for people to explore themselves, make mistakes, see what's works, see what's not working. What does collaboration mean? What does conflict mean? What does repair mean in those situations? Like those are still very important things for people to explore. So even though I'm critical about the commercial thing, I mean, the reality of it itself is a very beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you're completely correct that a lot of these cities have not been built with the bodies and histories of people of color with them in mind. So they look very different from how a city would look if it had occupants with culture, how it should
Yes.
look. So definitely that is showing up in this conversation for us a lot, I imagine. That's kind of the core of what is showing up by the creation of this term now that needs another space created for things that should have just been inherent in the architecture of a city.
Exactly, and not to be created. But it's fascinating that it's being created. Look, there's a need still, and then even if it's manufactured, it doesn't matter because it's still a need of people. Like
Correct.
we still need it. It just looks different. Yeah, interesting. Even though it was not a question, was very. I appreciate it for you bringing that in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for indulging. Honestly, we were scheduled to have this chat like almost a month ago, I think.
Yes.
And I was watching a reel on Instagram and I just heard some of these really interesting viewpoints around this. And I was like, ooh, this seems like something so fun to talk to Ambar about. And now I've lost all context of what was it so interesting about that conversation that I wanted to bring in, but I didn't want to discuss the idea of them anyway. So I suppose we did that. And so thank you for indulging in that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I would love to move into, I suppose, understanding what integration looks like for you, the lived reality of it. What does it mean to you?
Oh, I went like on such a big journey for integration. The difficult part for me, especially living in city, like integration is a process and it can go in many ways. And for example, if I come out of a breathwork session, new knowledge or things you remember are emerging, and it's very difficult. The challenge is how are we trying to make sense of something that was emerging where you don't have the words for, and how you're going to put it into daily life. That's the most difficult thing because we are also in this case talking about different languages, because sometimes words cannot encompass the experience. What you've experienced is like something felt, something you have seen, maybe it has been communicated to you, but you didn't find an understanding that resonates with certain kind of wisdom that's emerging. So what I hear from a lot of people is that they try to make sense out of it. Okay, well, so we're done with the session. Okay, I've learned that. How are we going to integrate? It's like, it doesn't work like that. It takes time to understand. Sometimes you need hours, days, maybe even months or years to understand how to integrate. But there are so many ways to integrate, right? There's so many practices, especially within the psychotherapy. What I'm doing right now is integration can be in drawing, writing, journaling, even movement, can be dancing. It can be so many different things to channel the energy what you've got after a session, and it needs to go through your system. And then it's a matter of time to be like, okay, this is what I've learned, and this is the action I'm taking into enriching my life, or adjust my behaviors, or introduce a part of me that was unknown in my daily life. It can be something that you have hidden, a part of yourself. It can also be a part that you've never met before and you would like to integrate. So I think the most difficult thing is because we try to make sense with words and we go into the city and we're going to continue with daily life, it just gets lost. So I think like how integration looks for me right now is having resources as people to lean onto. So we're talking about community again, right? For someone that can hold you in that experience, even though you cannot make sense of it yet. That's something what I struggled with a long time ago before I got into breath work. I went to an ayahuasca retreat. It was my first retreat. And when you're taking the sacred medicine, a lot of portals at the same time go open. It's not as subtle as breathwork. It's like universe is open. It's like, what do I need to do with this amount of information? So it took me, when I got back to the city, it took me 5 to 6 weeks before I could be around people because it was so overwhelming. I had no idea how to integrate, right? So I feel the important thing of integration is finding people that can hold you in the experience, even if you cannot make sense of it yet. And would drawing and journaling would enough? No, I don't feel that's enough. It's one of the ways how you can capture energy that's going through your system and you want to express it. But there are so many different things. You need to involve the body, the mind, feelings, how I connect to myself and how I connect to other people, how I connect with nature. So there's a very big facet of things and container in how to make integration meaningful for someone who has experienced something. And that process can be actually longer than the experience which you had. And that's what people forget a lot, is that the integration can go on and on, also because you get a better understanding what things mean, because you're growing as a person, your vocabulary enriches, your life experience enriches, and then you're like, oh, now I understand what was emerging. That it takes a little bit of time. So I feel like that's why I find integration very important, is because a lot of times integration is like a bit left out. And I'm like, oh, but actually the gem and the beauty is in the integration, because with a ceremony or a breathwork session or any other experience, it's just opening a door and then like stuff comes out like, and it's okay, what are you going to do? How are you going to reorganize? That's the big work that needs to happen. So that's why I find integration important, because it allows me to look at human beings and people I work with to themselves, that we're very big and complex. And we have so many different parts that need to be involved and engaged within integration. It's the body, it's the mind, it's the emotions, it is our history, it's what's coming after us. Like we're so complex, So I feel like integration needs to tap in on those different parts of us as a human being. That makes it complex, especially in city life. It's difficult, and also if you don't have access to nature or parks, it's very difficult to run energy through, do something with it. It's difficult.
Yeah, I hear you. But at least what I'm getting from this also is that a lot of small acts add up to that integration in a longer period of time. Something I've seen a lot of people fear after they hear the word is this idea around that, oh, I'm going to need a whole life overhaul for this. So I'm just not going to get into the practice. But many times it's just a lot of small things adding up. Like maybe the journaling alone does not do it. But if you're journaling consistently while you're also trying to find people who can support you, while also you find a park to go lay down in, a lot of that added up becomes these sort of small rituals that you allow your body and life to experience.
Absolutely. And it doesn't need to be very big. It's like, oh, I'm going to integrate. Now I'm going to move to Costa Rica, or then I get like a fan, and then like, oh, we can do small things. Connection with a neighbor, or connection with something that's closer, what's more within our reach. And I feel like that's also something that's very challenging for people. It's like, I had so many big insights. It's like so big. So the integration needs to be so big. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to change your entire life from many decennia because of one experience. No, you need to be very kind with yourself and just take small things in um, changing the way you think, the way you behave, the way you, I guess, small things of action, and then on a longer like period of time, you'll bear fruit of it. Yeah, so there's a lot of patience, all those small actions, and being consistent with it will change how you look at life. And then at one point, it goes from like, oh, it's just like an idea, it's an intention, and then it goes into an action, and then your behavior changes, and then it becomes like a habit, and that's like a practice, and then it's like, oh, that's who you are, so like there's a lot of action and willingness for the whole process to become something that will help you in the rest of your life. So yeah, integration is hard.
But also in smaller ways, very easy. In a sense.
It's very easy. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah,
It is.
I hear you. I didn't
Yeah.
mean to at all like reduce the weight of, not the weight, but the how crucial it is in a process. But in fact, I was trying to reduce the weight in a sense, because yes, it's crucial, but also it's not this heavy thing that cannot be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think more people should see it that way. That it's like, yeah, it is. It is. If you zoom out, it's like, oh my God, it's like life changing. Yeah, that's true. But small steps, baby step. What's within your capacity? That's also a big thing that we need to understand. Like, what is your capacity in taking all these changes on? Start small. Have patience, because everything will add up at one point. So that's why I find having a support network of people very important, because they can hold you in that whilst you are trying to navigate new things, right? Like, even though you don't have the words for it, it's just very good to have like-minded people, family members, friends, what have you, that can support you whilst you go through it.
Yeah.
Until you kind of understand what a new insight is trying to say to you.
It's actually so crazy to me, because so much of what I listened to in a lot of the wellness spaces, in whatever yoga classes, and even online when you see all of this, so many of the quotes just talk about, yes, you can lean here, you can lean there, but the actual work only happens when you sit by yourself and, do the work solo, and so much of that. But for me also, the biggest thing for me always is leaning on people. Even when yesterday I got the news about like having to vacate my house, the first thing I did was think of which friend I need to speak to right now. And I've actually been shamed for it a little bit through my life. But like, oh, why? Like, you don't need to share everything with the person. Why is codependency and why is it so important for you? And I've just been like, I mean, honestly, if it works for me, it works for me. What is the big deal here? If I'm identifying that this helps me, why should I not use it? Like, what is this big
Absolutely.
reason?
Yeah, and also like the whole individualism part you're mentioning, like that's a white supremacy characteristic, and it's actually very normal for you. Normal, like I think healthy for you to connect with someone to hold like difficult news or a process within your life, right? So yeah, what you said before about what people say in those healing spaces, that it is something which you need to do solo. Like, no, we're interconnected with each other. This is in no way we can do this solo, and there's also no way for us to get to a place and then we are ready to interact in the world, because now we're like the 2.0 of our version. Like, it doesn't work like that. I think if we embrace the messiness, we need to model and have relationships with each other, and then we kind of see if it's working out or not. But no, I think that's a very false thing to say. It's like it's a solo thing for us to do. Did it help? No, I don't think we should do things solo. We are relational beings, and we operate in relationship, and that's something where we need to go back to, because how we're living right now is so separate from each other. That's also why our mental health is not good, why our physical health is not good, is because we have removed ourselves from connection when we need that. So with integration, we need connection. If you're leaving a class, I mean, reflection, you can do it by yourself. But I think when it comes to integrating, it's relational. It's either me in relationship with nature, relationship with myself, or relationship with other people. Like, it's always connected, because we are part of something big, something collective. We are just like one piece of the big thing. And that's also why I feel like when it comes to integration and growing, it needs to be in relation with us, with everything that we're a part of. So, nah. Yeah, if somebody would say that, I will not come to the class again.
You know,
Doesn't sit right.
yeah,
Sorry?
I was a lot younger when all of these things were being said, and I didn't really have. And I genuinely did feel like I actually worked on this part of myself and went like, okay, maybe I should stop calling my friends so much all the time. And it was turned into, oh, you're too needy. It was turned into so many things, honestly. But that dialogue that goes around of like, the real work only happens when you sit alone with yourself. It's a very common phrase thrown around. But um, I'm happy with how I've taken it, and I'm even more happy, and I really appreciate the reaffirmation that this conversation is bringing for me right now. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Like, the work starts with yourself, obviously. But like what we mentioned before, is like, if you would like to address something in a social body, it starts with us. Like, so in the end, it's still interconnected, even if it starts with ourselves, we should do that. But then bring it alive with other people in relation. Like, that's where the works begin. But it's also something what has not been taught to us when we were growing up. It's not something we are taught at school or maybe by our parents. So I feel like the spaces that we are creating with our breath work is that hopefully those will be the spaces that we can share with people how it looks like, how to integrate together. And it doesn't need to be perfect. It's going to be messy. We're going to be misaligned. We're going to be in conflict. But I feel that there's a very big opportunity for us to create these spaces where people can integrate together, and it can be messy, and that you don't need to do it by yourself. It doesn't. That will hopefully that will remove also a lot of pressure in carrying all the big stuff by yourself. You can have it. You share it with people. You have less weight. So I think that's important. But thank you for throwing it into the space.
Yeah. Um, and as we're coming a little closer to our closing, one thing that I have very naturally been reflecting on in the past 2 days was the stuff that I spoke to you about just before we started, of how there are some challenges that have come up for me in the last 24 hours, and they sort of feel like difficulties at this moment, even though there's belief that they will change. Yet what it's really done for me is made me reflect on how my relationship with change and difficulty has changed over time, especially in this last year since I've been working in this space and trying to lean into the tools I have for myself. So I would also love to hear from you on um, what does that version of you look like? You did take me through how you're someone for whom transformation has become second nature over time, and I love that so much. I love hearing that so much. Um, But it is, of course, my understanding that it wasn't always like that. So I'm curious for you to take us maybe back to an earlier version of yourself before you had so much trust in that process of transformation.
Yeah. Oh, how did that process go? It was a long process, maybe over 15 years or something. Um, I think for me to be able to take more risk in facing transformation became like more clear and confident for me as soon as I knew how to have my resources. Resources is support, or also how I can support myself. And also, instead of trusting other people, trust myself more, as in if something happens and it doesn't turn out very well, that I can take care of myself within a certain kind of situation. And it became second nature because I got less daunted in solving life problems, because things are challenging because we've never experienced a situation like that in our lives. It's like, oh, for example, Suks, you have this news the last 24 hours, and it makes you a little bit nervous because you're like, I don't know how to solve it. Is it because you don't know how to solve it, or is it more about you don't know how it's going to look like? That's the same with transformation. It's like there is this mystery, but you also need to know that if you can take care of yourself, you can hold that uncertainty, right? And you get more skill because you're gonna stay more high risk. It's like, okay, if that's not working out, I have experience in the past that I can hold it, or I find another solution, or I'm gonna find help, or I'm not going to do this by myself anymore. I have two friends that experienced something like that before, so I'm going to call them. So it's about being creative in solving the challenges what you have, but also resting with the idea because of the newness it makes you nervous. It's not that you cannot solve it, you just don't know how it's going to look like. And the uncertainty stays there. It's the same with transformation, like people are scared to change. Like, why are you scared? You can always go back to your old version if you want. There's nothing scary about that, right? So you can solve all the things, like how you can do it, how you solve all the other things in your past. But when it comes to the future, it's like, oh yeah, well, I just don't know how it look like, but I will just wing it, like how you wing life. So that's how I have managed to feel safe, grounded, and trust myself when it comes to making transformation my second nature, is master it. Oh well, didn't turn out well, better luck next time. Like, that's in any type of situation, that's the case. Um, and how much more mistakes I've made and know how to solve it in the end also gives me a sense of agency in, I can solve it again. So I feel like if we have more courage in that, in the uncertainty, and also more trust in the ability what we already have, that we have enough experience to go headfirst into things. So that works the same with transformation. And there's always, it sounds so corny, but in every life's challenge you have, there is always a lesson which you can learn from that will help you in transforming. And it is actually true, because a situation is going to ask you and it's going to challenge you to become a new person that can handle that situation. So you need to change anyway. So the transformation is actually pushing you. It's like, it's time. And you're like, I don't feel like it. And it's true, because the body is not ready for change. That's actually why we feel anxious in moments of transformation, is because the nervous system is like, this is scary because it doesn't feel right. This kind of change that gives anxiety, blah, blah, blah. But then we also have the heart and the mind, as in, hey, buddy, I kind of understand why you're cueing me. It's going to be dangerous, but I feel I got our back because I have life experience and I trust myself. And either way, the worst case scenario, we will not end up there. So when it comes to transformation, having the mind-body connection with your heart is very important. And sometimes one of those things are more loud than the other, but then it's about taking a distance, look at it, and see how you can connect all those different parts again. And then before you know it, transformation has happened, it's embodied, and you're like, oh, that's actually not that difficult. You see? So throughout the years, I've managed to understand how that works. It's like when you are transforming something, is asking you to change. Challenges are being served to you, very beautiful or very ugly. Most of the time it's ugly because it's going to show you the urgency why and the emergency, like why you need to change it. And then I'm going to be like, oh yeah, it's another challenge. I just don't understand what the end is, but I will overcome. And part of me that is open for leaning into it and making it second nature because it allows me to be very creative in finding solutions. So there's a part of myself that's a creator and it likes to do it yourself kind of thing, you know? So then I can allow that part of myself and say, okay, we have a challenge. It's going to be super hard, but there's a part of me, Ambar, in the backseat, the creative part. Jump to the front. It's your turn. So, you know, like that's always challenging, but that's, I don't know if it makes sense, but that's the process I went through in making difficult moments that teach us a lot of things, gives us wisdom, is that process. And now I love to take risks. Like, yeah, let's go for it. Like, let's do it. What is the worst thing that can happen? And I'm like, nothing. Is it a life and death situation? No, the worst thing is that can happen is maybe economical, like, oh, you will lose more money, you gain more money, or you gain more time, or you lose more time, or if it's conflict, you can harm people, or you can have conflict, and then but in those cases, I'm like, I can repair. If I'm gonna piss people off within this process, I'm like, I don't mind. I can be authentic. I will piss people off, but I know how to repair. I know to have a difficult conversation with people, and then we can be friendships, relationships can be elevated because of this experiences. So I think if we have the trust in repairing, in being creative in solutions, I think we can hold difficult things, and then at one point you're like, oh my god, that had to emerge, a new part of yourself. So that's why I'm big on transformation, like super big.
Thank you for sharing all of that. That made so much sense. Please don't even question it for a second.
Yeah.
And I also love that what I heard was that there were skills like creativity and problem solving and relational repair that actually are things that you basically learned, taught yourself, and started using. And that's what changed an earlier version of you to a version that takes risks and trusts in transformation, which is absolutely beautiful. That those tools actually are at our disposal. They are there for us as social human beings to harness, and it's just our choice if we harness them or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So like within your, yeah, I maybe it's helpful for you in your new chapter, you know, like maybe there's something in there that maybe you can reflect on, you know, that gives you more like, you can do this, Suks, you know?
Oh yeah, problem solving is high up on things of interest to me. It's like,
Yeah, and there's also what I really love. There's something childlike in it. There's a lot of play.
yeah,
Uh,
100%.
and I'm like, just unleash that part of yourself. Like in this daunting period, like, okay, let mini Suks play, you know, like it can be messy, like
Yeah.
do
Sometimes
it.
I almost feel like uncertainty, yes, makes me wobbly, but that wobbly is almost like I'm giddy. And then giddiness almost becomes this like, okay, well, what is life trying to do for me right now? What is happening? So
Yeah.
now I guess I have to pivot and find another way through this. And well, I don't have control of it because we don't have control of a lot of situations
Yeah.
at times.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
But
That's a good
there's
thing what you
obviously
say.
a way through it, because there has to.
Absolutely, that there is a way through it, but also I think the beauty of it is like maybe we can clear the way so the way will be more visible. So like if there's
Stop
resistance, like
standing.
okay, yeah, so there's some obstacles, maybe we should remove it and then things will solve itself or things will fall into the right place, right time, you know? So it's also removing obstacles or things that are unnecessary.
Yeah.
That's also what I find beautiful about when it comes to healing. Like we're never healed. With healing, we're just like cleaning the space so so we have more space for other things to emerge, for us to solve different problems or more complicated problems, or for things to emerge that are good qualities of ours because we never had the space to do because we're so busy with our traumas into processing it on our hard drive that all good stuff that also part of us don't have time to emerge. Like it's also cleaning process for me, you know? So yeah. Yeah, I like challenges that, oh, the universe is throwing something at me and I'm like, it's because the universe know that I can handle this. What what does it have what is it trying to offer me? You know? I'm like, okay. If I look at
Instead
it
of
that
what I
way.
had planned. And that's totally
Oh
fine
yeah.
because,
And also what you had planned doesn't exist either, you know? Like you
yeah,
just
because it was
think,
based off of what you knew. And sometimes you
yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's it's
Yeah.
it's also like, oh, it's actually very, very simple, but also not simple. It's like the hardest thing ever.
Yeah. This is really the perfect kind of a conversation for me to have today. So it's
Yeah,
really great. Yeah, I love
that's
it.
good. Good to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Before we close on the episode, I actually just wanted to open some space up for you right now we've already talked about the thesis,
Yes.
but I know it's a really alive part of your life right now. And I think there are a lot of people listening in who are going to want to be part of it. So maybe taking a moment here to give you space to tell us who you're looking to work with, how can people get involved, where can they reach out to you, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so everybody can get in touch with me through my website, www.ambarsurastri.net. I'm also on Instagram, so you can follow me at Ambar Surastri. And I am working with individuals and I'm working with groups. And I have a trajectory starting after the summer. And I'm going to work with neuroexpensive groups. So if you have ADHD, autism, dyslexia, even if you have anxiety disorder and you feel like giving breathwork a go within a group of people to enhance your practice, please reach out to me. I will be very, very happy to guide you. I do it in person in London, and I can also do it online. So yeah, stay in touch, and hopefully I can meet more people and change how breathwork is going to be offered and made it more accessible for everyone.
Yeah, thank you for that. And equally, if anything in today's conversation has made you curious about working with Ambar directly, whether through sound healing or breathwork, or any of the other modalities she spoke about, because there's so much going on, please do follow the links in our show notes. This is exactly the kind of practitioner I truly believe the world needs a lot more of. Thank you so much, Ambar. Honestly, it's almost a moment of me not wanting to end this conversation.
Like, no.
Yeah, but it's also 10:30 p.m. for me now, so I'm just like, is my body tired?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for holding this incredible space and for inviting me to have a conversation with you. It was very heart opening. It was, there are a lot of things I'm like going to think about. So I feel like there's also a lot of integration after this one because I feel like
Yeah.
a lot of passion on certain topics and also hearing your perspective and your experiences has a lot of value to me. So thank you so much, Suks, for this. I loved it. And I can't wait to get in touch with you another time.
Yeah. And it might sound corny, but I feel exactly the same feelings you just described. The value of stories for me is really huge. So I loved listening to so much of what you spoke about. And yeah, there's just so much resonance, even the parts that there weren't really so many parts that weren't resonant. While I was just going to say this, I realized because I truly, even the things I didn't say it on, I just didn't say it because it would sound silly to just keep saying how much I resonate with each of it. There is one thing I actually wanted to mention.
Yes.
There is a ritual that I do at the end of each practice, which I've usually not been doing with like the guest present, which is that I record a poem, a piece of poetry that resonates with the theme that we've kind of covered or the things we've ended up talking about. However, I have been questioning for myself over this time period, over these 8 months, if I feel like, moving into a new ritual instead of that. And that new ritual in my mind had been, because when I was thinking of it, what else do I enjoy? Because it is sort of an integration for me at the end of the conversation. That new ritual for me, some of the ideas that came up, one of them was, okay, I feel like I want to name at the end of every episode one word or one phrase that I might have decolonized for myself through that conversation. And today, and I wasn't sure about any of this because I was like, okay, am I ready to let go of the poetry? I love it so much. And am I ready to move into a new one? And I'm still not sure. But the fact that
I
you
love this process. I love this.
yeah. I thought you would. But then how you brought up, neurodifficult today, I love that so much to move into that instead of neurotypical. And I feel like it feels like a great starting point for me I'm not sure if I'm letting go of the poetry yet, but I do feel like I can anyway start a new ritual along with the last one until I'm ready to let go of the last one. So this part I will do with you. That one word that I am decolonizing for myself from this session today is neurotypical, which now for me in my language and dictionary is called neurodifficult. Yeah. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Like that's now you have like another ritual. I find the poetry still a very beautiful thing to integrate, but this is also very strong because it encompasses so many things. Like even if it's one word, it says so much about the process of neurodivergence versus neurotypical, and that we are beyond the binary.
Yeah.
We are so much, and we need to credit us that we're so much more, and we are allowed to be that so much. We're allowed to be everything.
Yeah. Thank you so much for giving me the chance to explore that so organically instead of even, I really hadn't thought if today would be the day I would do it, but then it just happened so sweetly. And I love the words so much.
Yeah, and also thank you for leading into that, like the readiness of just bring it into the space, like, oh, I have something new. Like that's beautiful to see it in real time going through you. Like I think it's it's a pleasure to see that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right. So it seems like I'm not quite ready to let go of the ritual of my sweet, sweet poem at the end of every episode. And well, today I want to offer you something by Maya Angelou. Not that she deserves any sort of introduction, but to name a few things, she was a poet, a memoirist, a survivor, and one of the most luminous voices of the 20th century. She wrote from inside the experience of a woman who had been broken open by life repeatedly and had chosen each time to rise rather than disappear. She understood transformation not as a tidy arc, but as a daily embodied act of defiance and joy. This poem by her is called Still I Rise. I'm going to read just a portion of it, and I invite you to receive it not as inspiration, but perhaps as recognition. Still I rise. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Just like moons and like suns, with the certainty of tides, just like hopes springing high, still, I'll rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide, leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. Oof. Gosh, these poets. Well, what moves me about this poem is that it doesn't ask permission. It doesn't wait until the conditions are right, until the work is done, until the transformation is complete. It rises now. Out of the dirt, out of the shame, out of the history, it rises carrying all of it, not despite the weight, but through it. That is exactly what I felt Ambar has been showing us today. Integration is not the moment you arrive somewhere clean and resolved. It is the rising again and again, one tiny feasible step at a time, in the middle of your city, in the middle of your ordinary life, in the middle of becoming. In the next episode, we go somewhere new and find a new exploration for ourselves. I can't wait to be in that conversation with you. And in the meantime, if today's episode moved something in you, if something Ambar said is still sitting somewhere in your chest, here are a few small things I invite you to do. Subscribe to the Inspire Breathwork Podcast wherever you listen. The season is a whole journey. Each episode builds on the last, and you really, really don't want to miss it. Share this episode because someone in your life is standing in that gap right now, between the insight and the integration, between what they felt in that session and what Monday morning looked like. Just send it to a friend. Help them out. And if Ambar's work calls to you, whether you want to participate in her research, explore sound healing, or book a breathwork session, her details are in the show notes. Please reach out. She is building something that belongs to all of us. Thank you for being here. Thank you for walking this with me yet again. Until next month, go gently, take up space, and remember, you are not behind. You are not broken. You are in the middle of becoming, and still you rise. Take so much good care of yourself. Till I see you again.